Welcome to Novel Love Hearing. We bring you hundreds of novel audiobooks covering every genre and every kind of story you can imagine. Action? We've got it. Adventure? Absolutely. Horror? Of course. Whether it's the legendary Uchiha Massacre or outrageous tales like stealing Naruto's and Sasuke's women, you'll find it here. From epic series like One Piece, Bleach, Fairy Tail, and Hunter x Hunter, to countless other adventures, our library has it all. Love novels but don't have time to read? No worries, just plug in your earbuds, sit back, and let the story take over. Good listening, and happy hearing. Dazzling golden light flared into existence. Buggy definitely has a huge secret. Rowan's eyes shone with intense anticipation. Chapter 17, Get Stronger Just by Swimming. The ultimate hockey training cheat. Buggy traits, cannonball expertise. Blue, chop chop fruit. Deep purple, powerful connections. Special, conqueror's hockey. Unawakened, pale gold, born of the sea. Apex gold, discarded. A golden light, easily as dazzling as Luffy's. Sun god. Trait, flared brilliantly for an instant before strangely dimming. Buggy's traits were now displayed before Rowan's eyes. Cannonball expertise. Blue represented Buggy's ability to create his special buggy balls. The chop chop fruit. Deep purple wasn't particularly noteworthy to Rowan either. Like Luffy at this stage, Buggy could only skillfully use the most basic applications of this Paramsha devil fruit, splitting his body apart to attack. Currently, Buggy's use of this fruit, aside from granting immunity to slashing attacks, was quite ordinary. Even if awakened, the fruit's ultimate potential seemed limited to splitting apart the surrounding environment, like instantly dismantling a warship. While unawakened, chop chop fruit might be effective in chaotic battles. For Rowan, a devil fruit of this caliber wasn't worth significant attention. As expected, Buggy, just like his fellow Roger Pirate's apprentice red-haired Shanks, possessed Conqueror's hockey, though it remained unawakened. After all, this was the man who, after stumbling into becoming an emperor through sheer luck, could still rally his subordinates by asking, "Remember why you set out to sea? Don't your lives cry out? Go take it." The One Piece. And based on information revealed later in the original story, Buggy's origins might also be quite special. So, Rowan wasn't surprised to see Buggy possessed Conqueror's hockey. Powerful connections, special, as a former member of the Pirate King's crew, possesses an extremely strong network of connections, allowing him to turn misfortune into fortune. This trait was the key to Buggy becoming a warlord in the original story, and later, an emperor through a series of coincidences. While one could say Buggy was lucky, without his status as a former Roger Pirate and Shanks's friend, he never would have become a warlord, let alone an emperor. In the One Piece world, strength alone wasn't enough to rise to the top. Connections and circumstances mattered greatly. Consider Rusta's kid in the original story, lacking powerful connections, despite having a 3 billion Bailey bounty like Luffy after the Onigashima raid, he was instantly defeated by red-haired Shanks. Before their final clash, Shanks specifically requested intelligence on Kid. He wasn't interested in Kid's latest achievements or devil fruit advancements. Instead, Shanks checked Kid's network and background, the kid who dared provoke him repeatedly. After confirming Kid had no significant connections and was just a hot-headed nobody from an ordinary background, Shanks dispatched him with a single divine departure slash. But none of that was truly important right now. What made Rowan's eyes light up was the final trait. Born of the sea. Apex gold, discarded, born. 4. The sea possesses unparalleled swimming talent, supreme in all the oceans. Simply by swimming in the sea, can enhance one's own kingly disposition, thereby strengthening hockey. Discarded due to eating a devil fruit and being rejected by the sea. Rowan stared intently at this trait, his eyes practically turning bloodshot. A super potential type Apex gold trait. Its potential ceiling might even be more ridiculous than Luffy's. Sun god, Apex gold. No wonder Buggy, like Shanks, became an apprentice on the Pirate King's ship. No wonder he left such a deep impression on Whitebeard. No wonder Dark King Rayleigh himself said Buggy's future swimming ability would surpass his own. No wonder, before eating the devil fruit, Buggy was arrogant enough to face Whitebeard and boast about dyeing his mustache red. The reason for all of it lay in this born of the sea, Apex gold trait. In the One Piece world, the significance of the sea was self-evident. And a strong individual's kingly disposition was key to the strength of their hockey within the power system. Yet this born of the sea, Apex gold trait not only granted Buggy unmatched swimming talent but allowed him to continuously increase his kingly disposition, and consequently, his hockey, just by swimming in the ocean. While armament hockey strength might be linked to physique, and Observation hockey. Strength to mental fortitude, conqueror's hockey. The disposition of a king that couldn't be strengthened through conventional training, almost exclusively grew stronger by sailing the Grand Line, defeating powerful enemies one after another. It was like a brutal culling process, using the failures and blood of enemies to temper and enhance the user's own kingly disposition. But this, born of the sea, apex gold, trait allowed its user to strengthen their kingly disposition, and thus their conqueror's hockey, just by swimming. The potential of such an ability was simply staggering. If Buggy hadn't eaten the devil fruit, if this trait hadn't been discarded, perhaps the man renowned today for having the strongest hockey wouldn't be red-haired Shanks, it would be Buggy. This, born of the sea, apex gold, trait. It was basically a cheat code for hockey training. Get stronger just by swimming. No wonder Buggy was so arrogant and confident before eating the devil fruit. In a world where the sea reigned supreme, possessing such an ability, not being confident and arrogant would have been strange. But this trait was both his making and his downfall. After eating the devil fruit and being rejected by the sea, the trait was automatically discarded. The kingly disposition that could be infinitely enhanced just by swimming, the moment the trait was discarded, it backlashed against Buggy. The supremely confident and arrogant apprentice from the Pirate King's crew transformed into the cowardly Buggy the Clown. No wonder Buggy was so spirited and fearless during the clash with the Whitebeard pirates. But then, just a few months after eating the chop fruit, during the Ed War between the Roger pirates and the Golden Lion pirates, Buggy became the cowardly loser whining about wanting to run away. Such a drastic personality change in just a few months, it was the backlash from the discarded, born of the sea, apex gold, trait affecting Buggy himself. Everything makes sense now. Rowan's eyes blazed as he stared fixedly at Buggy. This trait, Rowan absolutely must obtain it. In terms of physique, once he finished equipping Luffy's superhuman physique, Deep Purple, and Zoro's demonic physique, Deep Purple, Rowan's physical potential would rival Kaido's, perhaps even eventually matching the monstrous Big Mom. In terms of devil fruits, with his trait plunder system, Rowan didn't need to worry about lacking powerful abilities. And if he could acquire this born of the sea, apex gold, trait, then in terms of hockey, Rowan would undoubtedly stand at the absolute pinnacle of the One Piece world. Furthermore, with the strongest trait system, Rowan could use plundered devil fruit abilities without suffering their side effects. Meaning, even if Rowan acquired devil fruit powers, he wouldn't be rejected by the sea like Buggy, causing the born of the sea, apex gold, trait to become discarded. Physique, hockey, devil fruit, the three most crucial aspects of the One Piece power system potential. Rowan's potential in all three areas could become the strongest in the world. Buggy, you really didn't disappoint. This trait, I want it. Why, you bastard? Do I know you? Why are you staring at me like that? Buggy suddenly felt a chill run down his spine. This guy's eyes were bloodshot, looking like he wanted to devour him whole. His name was Rowan. Wait. Rowan? Chapter 18, Rowan? Why, you're that Sky Sovereign Rowan? Buggy's face changed drastically as he stared at Rowan. Lately, the hottest topic across the seas was that World Economic News Agency report about a new king about to be born in the East Blue, Sky Sovereign Rowan. That was the man's epithet. Why, yeah. That's right, Captain Buggy. This guy, he's that Sky Sovereign Rowan. And the green-haired one is Pirate Hunter Zoro. One of Buggy's nearby subordinates pulled out a newspaper, comparing the picture to Rowan's face, and swallowed hard. A user of Conqueror's hockey. Even Buggy felt cold sweat prickle his forehead now. While Pirate Hunter Zoro had a fearsome reputation among East Blue pirates, Buggy wasn't worried about swordsmen, thanks to his chop fruit. But Conqueror's hockey was different. As a former crewmate on the Pirate King's ship, having sailed with the Roger pirates nearly everywhere except Laugh Tale, due to a sudden illness, Buggy had practically conquered the entire Grand Line alongside them. No one in the East Blue understood better than Buggy what Conqueror's hockey truly signified. It was the disposition of a king. Anyone who awakened it was considered a formidable power, even in the New World. And such a man had appeared here, in the East Blue? Wait a minute. Something clicked in Buggy's mind. He stared incredulously at Luffy, still locked in the cage. This Rowan guy. Is this brat's crewmate? That Sky Sovereign title. Don't tell me he chose it because this brat wants to be Pirate King, mirroring Vice Captain Riley's Dark King epithet. Does that mean this Conqueror's hockey user actually believes this brat can become the next Pirate King? What kind of sick joke is this? There was a world of difference between some arrogant little punk saying he wants to be Pirate King, and a man acknowledged by a Conqueror's hockey user as having the potential to become Pirate King. But why? Why would someone possessing Conqueror's Haki acknowledge this? Brat? Buggy's eyes turned bloodshot with disbelief and indignation. Sky Sovereign. Rowan? Nami murmured the name, looking at Rowan with disbelief. These past few days, Nami had been completely focused on the Grand Line map, with no time to buy the latest newspaper. Even without seeing the report, the sheer imposing nature of the Sky Sovereign title, combined with the reaction of Buggy the Clown, a pirate with a 15 million Bailey bounty, a major figure in the East Blue, spoke volumes. Buggy's palpable tension and fear upon hearing Rowan's name said everything. Nami knew the weight pirate hunter Zoro's name carried in the East Blue. Yet Buggy only showed surprise at hearing Zoro's name. Hearing Rowan's name, however, elicited genuine fear and apprehension. Just his name alone made a major pirate like Buggy this nervous? Could this man really be that strong? Nami stared blankly at Rowan, who now stood protectively in front of her. Kingly disposition increased. Conqueror's Haki intensity increased. Another notification appeared. Rowan noted Buggy sweating nervously at the mention of his name, and Nami's shocked gaze behind him. A slight smirk played on his lips. The reactions of mere grunts to his name no longer boosted his disposition. But the reactions of significant characters from the story, like Buggy and Nami? That still gave Rowan a distinct sense of satisfaction, enhancing his disposition. The process of strengthening Haki in the One Piece world resembled a culling, using the blood and failures of enemies to forge one's own stronger Haki. The fame and reputation of powerful individuals in this world were also built upon the blood and failures of their enemies. The principle was the same. Therefore, to continuously increase his disposition, and thus his Haki, through his reputation, Rowan needed his name to become ever more renowned. The best way to showcase a pirate's fame was naturally their bounty. No wonder pirates valued their bounty amounts so highly. Of course, relying solely on reputation was unpredictable. A more convenient and stable method for boosting disposition and Haki lay right before him, in the form of Buggy the Clowns. Born of the Sea, Apex Gold, Trait. U. VMM. Just as Buggy started to speak, the crimson-black light in Rowan's eyes flashed intensely. The next instant, boom. A terrifying wave of pressure surged outwards, sweeping over the Buggy pirates. The numerous Buggy pirate grunts froze in place. The next moment, their eyes rolled back, and they collapsed, unconscious. Thump. 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 Buggy's crew littered the ground. Conqueror's Haki, unleashed. In the presence of a king, the weak do not even possess the right to remain conscious. S.U.G. Rowan. Luffy yelled enthusiastically, providing ample positive reinforcement. Impressive. Zoro commented, sheathing his swords with a look of awe. No matter how many times he saw it, that power was terrifying. What happened? Nami stared at the scene in utter disbelief. Judging by Luffy and Zoro's reactions, Rowan was responsible for this. But Rowan hadn't moved. At most, he'd just narrowed his eyes, and nearly all of Buggy's crew was instantly wiped out. What kind of power was this? Arlong's strength was terrifying, but at least it was tangible, something you could see and understand. What just happened completely defied Nami's comprehension. She stared incredulously at Rowan, whose lips were curled into a confident, almost domineering smirk. Conquerors. Haki. Buggy's forehead was now drenched in cold sweat. Although he already knew Rowan possessed Conqueror's Haki, feeling its impact firsthand was no joke. If he hadn't already grown accustomed to such pressure during his time on Roger's ship, he likely would have fainted instantly too. Conqueror's Haki. And from a user who could control it with such precision. How could such a man appear in the East Blue? And why would he choose such an unremarkable, arrogant brat as his captain? What kind of sick joke was this? Just as expected. You didn't pass out. Rowan noted Buggy sweating but still conscious, feeling slightly disappointed. Well, he was an apprentice on Roger's crew, a man who had experienced the clash of infused Conqueror's Haki between Roger and Whitebeard. Even though Buggy hadn't awakened his own Conqueror's Haki yet, knocking him out with just a basic Haki blast was probably unrealistic. Alright then. Time for Plan B. Buggy needed to lose consciousness. Zoro. Rowan glanced towards Zoro. Got it. Understanding Rowan's unspoken command, Zoro instantly dashed towards the loaded cannon. Before arriving, Zoro had learned from Rowan that Buggy possessed the chop fruit, making conventional sword attacks ineffective against him. Hup. Under Buggy's horrified gaze, Zoro spun the heavy cannon around, aiming it directly at Buggy. Street stop. Don't. There's a Buggy ball loaded in there. Buggy shrieked in terror. Boom. The next moment, fire erupted from the cannon's mouth. The Buggy ball slammed into the ground right at Buggy's feet. A violent explosion of flames instantly engulfed the area. Chapter 19, Miss Thief, we're counting on you. Could you unlock our captain's cage? Rowan asked Nami with a smile. The buggy ball couldn't finish Buggy off. Right now, Rowan's only truly effective offensive power was his Conqueror's Haki. Trying to defeat Buggy, who possessed the chop fruit, using only his beast strength, blue, was practically impossible. Although his precisely controlled Conqueror's Haki was nearly unbeatable in the East Blue, against an opponent like Buggy, who couldn't be knocked out by a Haki blast, and was a devil fruit user, they temporarily had to rely on Luffy. Rowan remembered that in the original story, Nami managed to steal the cage key, only for it to be swallowed by the dog, Chao. Time for Luffy to do some work for me. Get me Buggy's traits. My name is Nami. You can just call me Nami, she replied. Although Rowan and his crew were pirates, Nami was still grateful they had saved her. Wait here, Nami said, then quickly disappeared. Using your subordinates as shields, huh? Buggy. The dust and debris from the explosion slowly settled, revealing Buggy's figure once more. His hands had already split off, holding two of his grunts in front of him to absorb the impact of the buggy ball. So young, yet possessing such powerful Conqueror's Haki. Your future is terrifying. But right now, you're probably still no match for me, the user of the chop fruit. Buggy declared, having fully recovered from the Haki blast thanks to the explosion's shock. While Conqueror's Haki signified the disposition of a king, before mastering infusion, it could only be used for concussive blasts. Few in the East Blue could withstand such a blast, but unfortunately for Rowan, Buggy was one of them. Once the initial Haki blast was weathered, the fight came down to raw power. In that regard, having sailed countless days and nights with the Roger pirates, Buggy had a discerning eye. This Rowan fellow before him clearly wasn't that strong physically. At least, not stronger than Buggy himself, enhanced by the chop fruit. Buggy didn't understand why a man with such potent Conqueror's Haki would have such unremarkable base strength. But he knew what he needed to do right now, eliminate the man before him. As for pirate hunter Zoro? Clearly a swordsman. And against swordsman, Buggy, user of the chop fruit, felt confident enough to provoke even Mihawk. Of course, the main reason for that confidence was knowing Mihawk recognized his connection to Shanks and wouldn't actually go for the kill. Looks like I'll have to hold him off for a bit, Rowan, Zoro said, drawing his three swords and facing Buggy. Die. Flashily. Buggy roared, charging towards Zoro. Slice. Zoro dodged swiftly, slashing Buggy clean in half. Buggy collapsed limply to the ground. Stop playing dead. Slashes don't work on the chop fruit, right, Buggy? Rowan commented calmly, watching Buggy feign defeat on the ground, clearly preparing a sneak attack on Zoro. Pathetic. After eating the devil fruit and being rejected by the sea, the backlash from the discarded Born of the Sea Apex Gold trait had reduced Buggy to relying solely on such cheap tricks. If it weren't for the chop fruit, Zoro could easily defeat Buggy at his current strength level. Since you already know the secret of the chop fruit, I won't bother pretending anymore. Hearing Rowan, Buggy's upper half suddenly flew up into the air, revealing a cruel grin. Chop. Flying daggers. Buggy yelled. His hands detached from his flying torso, each wielding daggers, as they shot towards Rowan and Zoro separately. Gamu no. Bite. What? Buggy stared in shock as Luffy's head suddenly stretched forward, catching the dagger aimed at Rowan squarely between his teeth just inches from Rowan's face. What kind of body is that? Are you a monster? Nami, having successfully stolen the key and freed Luffy, stared wide-eyed at Luffy's neck stretching several meters long. Your body can stretch that far? Did you eat a devil fruit too? Buggy's eye twitched. Yep. I ate the Gamu fruit. I'm a rubber man. Luffy mumbled indistinctly around the dagger clamped in his teeth. Slice. Zoro first deflected Buggy's other attacking hand, then swiftly cut the ropes binding Luffy. Saved. Shishishi. Thanks, Thief Navigator. Luffy grinned, stretching his freed limbs. Stop giving me weird nicknames. I was just repaying you guys for saving me. Nami sighed, exasperated by Luffy's carefree attitude. I've already decided. You're gonna be our cruise navigator. Shishishi. And we're getting that Grand Line map too. Luffy declared, rolling up his sleeves and turning towards Buggy. Don't make decisions for me. Anyway, you pirates can fight all you want, it has nothing to do with me. I'm gonna grab the treasure now and disappear. Maybe we can team up later if fate allows. See ya. Good luck with your fight. Nami waved goodbye to Rowan and the others, then quickly vanished. Thanks. Luffy replied cheerfully. See you later, Nami. Rowan added with a smile. Nami, already almost out of sight, faltered for a split second upon hearing Rowan's words, then sped up and disappeared completely. Bastards. You think you have time for idle chit-chat? Straw hat brat. Seeing that hat just reminds me of that damned red hair. It really pisses me off. Buggy snarled, eyes bloodshot. Red hair? You. Do you know Shanks? Luffy's attention snapped upon hearing the keyword red hair. So what if I do? Buggy smirked strangely. Where is Shanks now? Luffy asked eagerly. Who knows? You could say I know him, or you could say I absolutely don't know him at all. Buggy spat, remembering that it was because of Shanks he ended up eating the chop-chop fruit in the first place. The thought still infuriated him. What are you talking about? Are you an idiot? Luffy looked at Buggy like he was crazy. I'm not nice enough to tell you what you want to know. Buggy roared, his face contorting in rage. Fine then. I'll just beat it out of you. Luffy declared, rolling up his sleeves, ready to fight. Let's just sit here and watch, Zoro. Buggy's all yours, Luffy. Rowan led Zoro to a clean spot nearby, sat down, and shouted encouragement to Luffy. Listening to Luffy and Buggy's exchange, a strange smile played on Rowan's lips too. Classic One Piece world. Before any major fight, everyone has to lay out their connections and relationships first, just to make sure they don't accidentally kill someone with powerful relatives. It's practically become standard procedure. Leave it to me. Luffy's eyes burned with fighting spirit. Rowan's temporary employee, Luffy, was now online. Chapter 20, Gamu Gamu. Chop Chop. On the battlefield between Luffy and Buggy, one possessed a rubber body, the other a body that could split apart. The fight was a chaotic flurry of limbs flying everywhere. Witnessing a battle between devil fruit users up close for the first time, Rowan found it quite fascinating. Because Rowan's conqueror's hockey had cleared the field, only Buggy himself remained active among his crew. Everyone else, even Buggy's second-in-command, Chief of Staff Kabaji, couldn't withstand the impact of Rowan's hockey and had passed out. Thus, Rowan's side was quite peaceful. Even when occasional daggers or detached Buggy body parts flew their way, Zoro, standing beside him, easily deflected them with his sword sheaths. What a messy fight. Zoro commented, his eye twitching. Having only recently set out to sea, he'd never witnessed combat like this before. So this is the legendary devil fruit power. It really is ridiculous. My swordsmanship is completely useless against this kind of devil fruit user. Zoro noted grimly, slicing a flying Buggy limb in two, only to watch the pieces immediately fly back towards Luffy and reattach. This was the first time Zoro had encountered a situation where his swords were ineffective. Without hockey, defeating devil fruit users often requires exploiting their specific weaknesses. Rowan explained, deciding to broaden Zoro's horizons a bit early. Hockey? You mean that power you used to knock everyone out? Zoro's gaze sharpened. That was Conqueror's hockey, the disposition of a king possessed by only one in several million. What I'm talking about now is armament hockey. With that hockey, even ordinary attacks can harm devil fruit users. Rowan elaborated with a calm smile. Disposition of a king possessed by only one in several million? And armament hockey that can hit devil fruit users. Zoro murmured the terms. Disposition of a king. No wonder Rowan's power felt so overwhelming. So, how do you acquire this hockey power? Zoro asked Rowan eagerly. Conqueror's hockey cannot be obtained through training, it's an innate quality of kings. As for acquiring armament hockey, conquer the Grand Line, Zoro. Defeat one powerful enemy after another. Like I said, you can't achieve your ambition staying in the East Blue. Rowan advised, clapping Zoro on the shoulder. Armament hockey, too, required sufficient disposition and physical fortitude to awaken. And without a ridiculously overpowered trait. Like Buggy's. Born of the sea, Apex Gold, the only way to accumulate that disposition was through the trials of conquering the Grand Line and overcoming formidable foes. That process allowed one to eventually learn and strengthen their hockey. This explained why hockey users were virtually non-existent in the Four Blues and the first half of the Grand Line, but incredibly common in the second half, the New World. The challenges offered by the Four Blues and Paradise simply weren't enough to forge the disposition required to awaken hockey. The Grand Line, huh? Sounds exciting. Joining you guys was definitely the right choice, Rowan. Zoro replied, a feral grin spreading across his face. The sea. It really is vast. The things he was learning from Rowan were beyond anything he'd ever heard before. He eagerly anticipated the journey ahead. Meanwhile, after scrapping for a while, Buggy started reminiscing about his past with Shanks. Upon learning that Buggy only ate the chop-chop fruit and lost his ability to swim because of Shanks, but that Shanks had also saved Buggy from drowning. Oh. So Shanks saved you? Luffy exclaimed, looking at Buggy with sudden understanding. That's not the point. Buggy roared back, his face contorting comically. Anyway, it's all that bastard's fault. My life plans got set back 10 years because of him. So I decided, if I can't conquer the sea, I'll just plunder all the treasure on land instead. Using the power of this chop fruit. Buggy flashed a vicious grin. So, anyone who dares touch my treasure. Buggy's upper and lower body separated, his torso flying into the air. No matter who they are, I won't forgive them. Buggy roared, bypassing Luffy and shooting towards a slender figure in the distance. Put my treasure down. Buggy yelled, daggers drawn, hurtling towards Nami. Crap. He spotted me. Nami panicked, having just managed to steal the Buggy pirate's treasure. Luffy turned, looking quizzically at Buggy's lower half still standing on the ground. Ha! Rowan suddenly stood up. This was the opportunity he'd been waiting for. Don't think you can escape me. Nami. Watch me flashily chop you into pieces. Buggy cackled sadistically, closing in on Nami. The next moment, wham! Buggy's expression instantly twisted in agony. Crunch. Luffy had delivered a swift kick directly to Buggy's groin, his detached lower half still standing vulnerable on the ground. The faint sound of something shattering could be heard. Thud. Buggy's airborne upper body plummeted to the ground. In my crotch. Attacked in the ultimate male weak spot, Buggy's face contorted in pain. However, his resilience honed on Roger's ship prevented him from losing consciousness immediately. But the next second, hi-ah. Crack. Rowan unleashed his beast strength to its absolute limit. He followed up with another powerful kick, striking the exact same spot Luffy had just hit. The shattering sound was much more distinct this time. The compounded agony was too much. Buggy's eyes rolled back, and he finally lost consciousness, albeit temporarily. Target has lost consciousness. Trait plunder available, plunderable traits, cannonball expertise, blue, chop fruit, deep purple, born of the sea, apex gold, discarded. A notification screen appeared. Unawakened Conqueror's Haki wasn't a power yet, just latent potential. Disposition could only be plundered once, same for equipping. Awakened Conqueror's Haki, however, could be plundered as a strength-type trait. Rowan had no intention of plundering Buggy's chop fruit. Firstly, he didn't need such a mediocre devil fruit. Secondly, if he plundered it, Buggy would be freed from the devil fruit curse and no longer rejected by the sea. This could potentially make Buggy a significant unpredictable X-factor in the future. Rowan preferred to keep the future course under his control. Using the insignificant chop fruit to neutralize a potential future complication was more advantageous for Rowan. As for plundering the fruit and then killing Buggy, Buggy had already followed the standard One Piece procedure before the fight and revealed his connections. His relationship with Shanks and Rayleigh could be very useful to Rowan in the future. The chop fruit simply wasn't valuable enough to sacrifice those potential future benefits. Rowan's target had been clear from the start. Plunder. Rowan commanded inwardly. A faint, dimmed golden light, visible only to Rowan, flew out from Buggy's body and entered Rowan's zone. Instantly, it reignited, blazing with dazzling brilliance. Successfully plundered, born of the sea, apex gold. Chapter 21, Check Traits. Rowan prompted inwardly. A screen materialized before him. Rowan traits, navigation, white, beast strength, blue, Conqueror's Haki, pale gold, faction fortune, apex gold, born of the sea, apex gold, superhuman physique, deep purple, equipping, vertical bar, demonic physique, deep purple, equipping, vertical bar, azure aura, special, equipping, vertical bar, sun god, apex gold, equipping, vertical bar, born of the sea, apex gold, born for the sea. Possesses unparalleled swimming talent, supreme in all the oceans. Simply by swimming in the sea, can enhance one's own kingly disposition, thereby strengthening Haki. The discarded label was gone. This apex gold trait, which had dimmed after Buggy ate the chop fruit, now blazed brightly within Rowan's body, fully reactivated. Born of the sea, apex gold, the ultimate Haki training cheat code, was finally his. Rowan closed his eyes and took a deep breath. Whoosh! The sea breeze caressed Rowan's face. Everything is different now. Rowan slowly opened his eyes, a distinct curve forming on his lips, an expression reflecting Rowan's newfound kingly disposition. As expected of a cheat code for enhancing disposition and Haki. Even without entering the ocean yet, just feeling the sea breeze felt completely different than before. Rowan could clearly perceive it now, the energy emanating from the sea itself, carried on the wind. In the One Piece world, the sea's energy was ubiquitous. Whitebeard saying, "Everyone on the sea is a child of the sea," wasn't just empty words. It was just that most people couldn't sense this energy at all. Those who could directly perceive the sea's energy were either devil fruit users, rejected by the sea itself, Or individuals like Rowan now, possessing a trait like Born of the Sea, Apex Gold. However, Devil Fruit users were rejected by the sea, they couldn't even move freely when submerged in its energy. But Rowan, through Born of the Sea, Apex Gold, could utilize this sea energy to become even stronger. Confidence, absolute confidence. It felt as though he had become the sea's favored child. Even without swimming, just feeling the sea's energy in the wind caused a profound shift in Rowan's mindset. It felt like a fish returning to water, utterly comfortable. And the positive feedback from the sea's energy filled him with immense self-assurance. This feeling. It was simply too wonderful. Rowan gazed out at the distant ocean, feeling an overwhelming urge to dive in and swim. Just by swimming in the sea, he could enhance his disposition, thereby strengthening his conqueror's hockey. With the Born of the Sea, Apex Gold, trait, reaching the level of fully mastered conqueror's hockey, infusion, Apex Gold, achieving the strength of a peak emperor, was a matter of time. Furthermore, possessing Born of the Sea, Apex Gold, meant Rowan's hockey potential now stood at the absolute zenith of the One Piece world. Kaido himself had said, only hockey can transcend all else. Therefore, possessing the strongest hockey potential in the One Piece world meant Rowan was destined to stand above all. A confident, almost domineering curve touched Rowan's lips. His earlier declaration, originally intended just to gain fame, secure a cool epithet, and test Luffy's reaction for trade equipping, had felt somewhat overly dramatic at the time. But now, having acquired the Born of the Sea, Apex Gold, trait, it felt perfectly natural, completely justified. Making arrogant claims without the strength to back them up was foolish. But with sufficient power, such claims became the ambition of the strong. Rowan's mindset had fundamentally changed. Be bastard. How dare you treat me like this? Just then, Buggy finally regained consciousness from the excruciating pain. Instinctively, he activated his chop fruit, splitting his entire body into even more pieces. If those two bastards landed a couple more solid hits like that, his weak spot would truly be shattered beyond repair. You're pretty tough, huh? Rowan commented, now in an excellent mood. He even looked at Buggy with a measure of goodwill. Without Buggy, he wouldn't have obtained such an incredible potential-boosting trait. More importantly, this trait had given Rowan the true mindset befitting a powerful individual. Why do I feel like you're somehow different from before? Buggy, though furious and wanting revenge on Luffy and Rowan, hesitated for a moment upon looking at Rowan again. Having spent years on Roger's ship, Buggy, despite his current weakness, still possessed a keen eye. Previously, although Rowan possessed powerful conqueror's hockey, Buggy hadn't perceived Rowan himself as a truly strong individual. It wasn't just about raw power, the earlier Rowan lacked the aura of the strong. People like Captain Roger or Vice Captain Rayleigh. Just standing there, even without using hockey, they radiated an aura of terrifying strength. That was the presence born from the mindset of a top-tier powerhouse. But the Rowan standing before him now felt completely different. Strong. Just standing there, this man felt terrifyingly strong. It was like a complete metamorphosis compared to before. Buggy felt a sense of disorientation, then shook his head vigorously. What the hell is wrong with me? For a terrifying instant, he thought he saw a shadow of Captain Roger in the sky. That same imposing air, ready to challenge anything, ready to trample everything underfoot. Enough talk. You messed me up good. Watch me flashily finish you off. Perhaps reminded of his own spirited days on Roger's ship by Rowan's presence, and contrasting it with his current state, Buggy flew into a rage fueled by shame and anger. Chop chop. Parts assemble. Buggy roared, intending to bring all his separated body parts back together. Whoosh. Buggy stared down at himself, bewildered. Only his feet had arrived. Ah! My body parts. Buggy looked over and let out a cry of shocked rage. Nami had used a rope to neatly tie up all his other detached limbs and torso. Right now, Buggy consisted only of a head, 2 hands, and 2 feet. Shishishi. That thief is amazing. Luffy grinned, stretching both his arms far behind him. Fly away, Buggy. Gamu Gamu no. Ah! Stop! Buggy shrieked in terror, watching the rapidly approaching rubber fists. Bazooka! Luffy yelled. Buggy was sent flying high into the sky, becoming a twinkling star in the distance. Ha 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 ha. We won. Luffy cheered, throwing his hands up. Knowing Buggy didn't have information about Shanks, and realizing his rubber attacks couldn't deliver a fatal blow to the chop fruit user anyway, blasting him away was the best option. Huh. So getting blasted away really does turn you into a star. Interesting. Rowan mused, shielding his eyes as he watched Buggy's star disappear, a smile on his face. Whether Buggy managed to find his body parts like in the original story remained to be seen. Straw Hat Pirates vs. Buggy Pirates. Straw Hat Pirates win. complete victory. And Rowan, having acquired Born of the Sea, Apex Gold, was the biggest winner of all. Chapter 22, here. You guys need this, right? The Grand Line map. Nami said, handing the sea map to Luffy after the battle was completely over. Eh? You're giving it to me? Luffy looked at Nami, pleasantly surprised. Well, we kind of teamed up, didn't we? And I couldn't have gotten the buggy pirate's treasure without you guys. Nami replied, smiling as she looked at the 2 large sacks of treasure beside her. If converted to Bailey, this treasure was worth a full 10 million. This was her biggest haul ever. After all, without Rowan and the others, Nami wouldn't have dared to single-handedly infiltrate the base of a major pirate with a 15 million Bailey bounty. But even though we sort of cooperated, this treasure is all mine. Nami quickly hugged the sacks tightly, her expression turning wary again after her moment of happiness. Shishishi. With this, we can go to the Grand Line, right, Rowan? Luffy, completely uninterested in the treasure, excitedly held up the Grand Line map and called out to Rowan. That's right. But we still need a proper pirate ship. And a navigator. Rowan replied after carefully examining the map. With only navigation, Rowan struggled even to understand this map properly, let alone navigate the Grand Line. The Grand Line, huh? A fierce grin spread across Zoro's face. After Rowan had opened his eyes to the possibilities, Zoro was now eager to head to the Grand Line and pursue his ambition. Navigator? Isn't she right here? Shishishi. Luffy pointed at Nami, grinning. Nami had been staring blankly at the 3 of them. She'd never met pirates who were so completely indifferent to such a large amount of treasure before. These guys. Their eyes held no greed, only dreams. Pirates who set sail purely for their dreams. Do people like that really exist in this world? Just as Nami was pondering this, she heard Luffy's words and immediately retorted. Hey. I told you I won't join a pirate crew. But then, Nami's eyes darted around thoughtfully, and she smiled again. However, teaming up with you guys does seem pretty profitable. Maybe we could continue working together. Shishishi. Then it's decided. Nami's our navigator. Luffy yelled excitedly. Temporary navigator. Nami corrected. Welcome aboard, Nami. Rowan said, extending his hand to her with a smile. Just like when he had invited her to dance on the luxury liner. Seeing this gesture, Nami clearly remembered her first meeting with Rowan, feeling a sense of déjà vu. She had assumed they'd never meet again on this vast sea, that Rowan's "until we meet again" was just a casual platitude. Yet, not only had it come true today, but she had somehow become the temporary navigator on his ship. Nami nodded, taking Rowan's hand, her lips pressed together thoughtfully. Why you guys? Defeated Buggy the Clown? Just then, a shocked voice interrupted them. Rowan and the others turned to see an old man, white-haired, frail-looking but wearing homemade armor, strangely dressed, staring at them in disbelief. Yeah, we beat Buggy's crew. Who are you, old man? Luffy readily admitted, then looked at the old man curiously. I am Boodle, the mayor of this orange town. Who are you? You don't look like Marines. Boodle introduced himself, then asked, his face still showing traces of shock. The Buggy Pirates. Defeated by these kids? Their town was taken over by the Buggy Pirates, they must hate pirates. Definitely don't tell them who you are. Nami whispered urgently. I'm Luffy. I'm a pirate. Luffy announced straightforwardly. Thump. Nami nearly face-planted. Ha 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 ha. Zoro slapped his thigh, roaring with laughter. Rowan chuckled at the scene as well. Classic Luffy. Pirates. Mayor Boodle's face twitched. Ah, I'm starving. Old man, can you treat us to a meal? Luffy patted his stomach. Using devil fruit powers consumed a lot of stamina. What kind of pirate asks someone else to treat them to a meal? Nami couldn't find the words to describe Luffy's behavior. Some booze would be nice. Zoro added hopefully. A good drink after a fight was one of Zoro's greatest pleasures. We should definitely celebrate properly. Rowan agreed, still elated from acquiring the Born of the Sea, Apex Gold, trait. Even you, Rowan? Nami felt utterly exasperated. Did these guys have any awareness of the situation? They were pirates. And this mayor's town had just been occupied by pirates. Follow me. Boodle said unexpectedly after a moment of silence. Alright. Food. Luffy excitedly followed Boodle. Zoro and Rowan followed with smiles. Nami, though exasperated, had no choice but to follow along with her treasure sacks. Boodle led them to his house. On the way, they encountered the small dog, Chow Chu, faithfully guarding the pet shop left behind by his deceased owner. Chow Chu, not having formed the same bond with Luffy as in the original story, barked fiercely at the group, only calming down slightly after Boodle reassured him. Rowan simply smiled at this. Compared to forging the same friendship from the story, what Chaochu truly needed, the preservation of the pet shop filled with memories of his master, had already been achieved, implicitly, by defeating Buggy. Boodle prepared some food for them. During their conversation, Boodle clearly sensed that Rowan's group was different from the Buggy pirates and explained everything that had happened in the town. Luffy, meanwhile, just focused on stuffing his face, saying nothing. Listening to Chaochu's story, how the dog refused to leave the shop filled with memories, even facing the Buggy pirates, determined to protect his master's legacy, Nami was visibly moved but felt powerless to do anything. "Ah, I'm full. So full. Okay, we're heading out. Thanks for the meal, old man." Luffy patted his belly, beaming with satisfaction. "How can you smile so happily after hearing what happened here? Pirates really are cold-blooded. Always taking away what's important to others so easily." Nami suddenly snapped, looking at Luffy's smile, her emotions overflowing. "No matter what I say, what happened here already happened. What's lost won't come back, right?" Luffy replied simply, looking at Nami. "But you can't be so indifferent," Nami yelled, venting her frustration. She knew it was true. Her outburst was fueled by the parallels between the town's situation and her own hometown's suffering. But the next moment, a hand gently rested on Nami's shoulder. "Rowan?" Nami looked up at him, startled. Luffy isn't being indifferent. This is just Luffy's way, his own kind of strength. Rowan said seriously. "Talking is always the easiest thing to do, but it doesn't change anything. Just like with you, Nami." Nami started to protest, but Rowan's next word stunned her into silence. "You definitely have your own story too, but we won't ask. Even if you told us what happened to you, we could never truly understand how you feel right now. Just talking about it won't change what you've been through. But when you feel the time is right." Nami stared blankly at Rowan's face, which now held a smile as warm and bright as the sun. "Lean on us as much as you need to, Nami. We'll help you, even if we have to risk our lives. We're comrades now." Nami stared at Rowan, speechless. Rowan then looked at Luffy with a smile. "Right, Luffy? Shishishi. That's right." Luffy yelled back enthusiastically. Rowan's understanding of comradeship resonated perfectly with Luffy. Zoro didn't speak, just offered a fierce grin and adjusted the grip on his Wado Akamanji slightly. This sentiment resonated deeply with Zoro as well. Nami pressed her lips together, struggling to keep her emotions in check. She gripped Rowan's hand resting on her shoulder, gently leaning her forehead against it, as if finally finding something solid to rely on. Received strong acknowledgement from Monkey D. Luffy. Bond increased. Trait equipping progress increased. Superhuman physique, Deep Purple, has finished equipping. A notification screen appeared before Rowan. Chapter 23, Rowan Traits, Navigation. White, Superhuman physique. Deep Purple, Conqueror's Hockey. Pale Gold, Faction Fortune. Apex Gold, Born of the Sea. Apex Gold, Demonic physique. Deep Purple, equipping, Vertical bar, Azura Aura. Special, equipping, Vertical bar, Sun God. Apex Gold, equipping, Vertical bar. Superhuman physique. Deep Purple, was now fully equipped. Rowan could feel the food he'd eaten earlier, which hadn't fully digested yet, being processed by his body at an astonishing speed, converting into nutrients and nourishing him. Furthermore, his stamina and strength received a massive, all-around boost. With a Deep Purple combat trait now active, Rowan possessed more offensive options beyond just his Conqueror's Hockey, higher-tier trait of the same type detected. Beast Strength, Blue, automatically converted into nutrients. Another notification appeared. The first blue trait Rowan obtained after transmigrating had now fulfilled its purpose. While blue traits couldn't be used as upgrade materials, this wasn't an upgrade scenario. Instead, the superior superhuman physique, Deep Purple, trait effectively overwrote the lower-tier Beast Strength, Blue, trait. Leveraging the properties of the superhuman physique, Deep Purple, trait, the energy from Beast Strength, Blue, was converted into nourishment, further enhancing Rowan's physique. However, this overwriting effect was a one-time occurrence. Acquiring additional blue-tier physique traits in the future wouldn't provide further nourishment. Only by obtaining combat traits of pale purple tier or higher could he upgrade the superhuman physique, Deep Purple. Rowan felt his physique strengthened slightly more. Even though the gap between blue and Deep Purple traits was vast, every little bit helped. Right now, in terms of raw physique, Rowan actually surpassed Luffy by the equivalent of one blue trait. The gains from the encounter with the Buggy Pirates had truly exceeded Rowan's expectations. Not only had he acquired Born of the Sea, Apex Gold, but the superhuman physique, Deep Purple, equipped from Luffy had also completed. The equipping progress for the Sun God, Apex Gold, trait had also noticeably advanced. Next, He just needed to wait for Zoro's demonic physique, Deep Purple, to finish equipping. Once that happened, Rowan's vision would be realized, his physical potential would reach the absolute peak tier of the One Piece world. Rowan clenched his fist, feeling the surge of power, a slight smile playing on his lips. Fully equipped traits could be perfectly controlled by Rowan, so there was no risk of him losing control due to the sudden increase in strength. "Thank you for your hospitality. We'll be taking our leave now," Rowan said, addressing Mayor Boodle. Right now, Rowan's most pressing desire was to dive into the sea and experience the power of the Born of the Sea, Apex Gold, trait. Ha! Boodle suddenly stood up straight and performed a deep, 90-degree bow towards Luffy, Rowan, and the others. "Words cannot express my gratitude. Thank you. Thank you for saving this town." Tears streamed down the old mayor's face. "Shishishi. Don't worry about it. Take it easy," Luffy replied with his signature grin. Rowan smiled at the scene, then glanced at Nami. Their eyes met, and Nami offered a small smile in return. She understood. Rowan was showing her, not telling her, that they wouldn't offer useless words of comfort. They acted. When she felt the time was right, if she just asked, Rowan and his crew truly would risk their lives to help her. "Comrades." "Huh?" Nami pressed her lips together thoughtfully. Setting sail. At the harbor, Nami had tied their small boat alongside one of the buggy pirates' smaller vessels, preparing them to sail side by side. Luffy stood energetically at the bow, shouting his departure. Splash. Luffy's declaration was answered by the splash of Rowan diving into the water. "Rowan. What are you doing? The seawater makes me weak." Luffy yelped, scrambling to avoid the splashing water, looking concernedly at Rowan in the sea. "Just felt like a swim." Rowan laughed heartily, reveling in the ocean water. "Incredible. Exhilarating." Rowan felt every cell in his body singing with joy. As expected of the trait Born of the Sea, being in the ocean felt like being home. Nami watched Rowan laughing freely in the water, her eyes filled with a complex emotion. Rowan in the sea felt completely different. Free, confident, powerful. Many adjectives could describe him now. But to summarize it simply, Rowan, in the ocean, seemed to practically glow. Born of the Sea, Apex Gold, activated. Kingly disposition increased. Conqueror's Haki intensity increased. Born of the Sea, Apex Gold, activated. Kingly disposition increased. However, Rowan quickly noticed something. After the initial increase in Haki intensity, subsequent activations only increased his disposition. Rowan continued swimming, analyzing the changes within himself. Could it be? Rowan leaped out of the sea and back onto the boat. "Oh. Ha." He took deep breaths, feeling the sea's energy within the wind. Accumulated kingly disposition digested. Conqueror's Haki intensity increased. Accumulated kingly disposition digested. Conqueror's Haki intensity increased. A series of notifications appeared. "I see." A smile spread across Rowan's face. The disposition gained through this cheat-level trait wasn't earned through the crucible of battle, forged from the blood and failures of enemies. The Born of the Sea, Apex Gold, trait essentially transformed disposition and Conqueror's Haki, elements normally impossible to train directly, into something that could be strengthened through a form of exercise. And like any exercise, it required a digestion period afterward. Using physical training as an analogy made it easy to understand. To make your body stronger, after exercising, you needed to eat, digest, absorb, and then finally experience the strengthening. Similarly, to strengthen Haki using Born of the Sea, Apex Gold, the same process was required. Swimming in the sea with Born of the Sea, Apex Gold, enhanced disposition, that was like eating. To actually get stronger after eating, the accumulated disposition needed to be digested and absorbed before it could be used to enhance Haki. No wonder Buggy was so absurdly confident, practically arrogant, before eating the chop fruit. Even top-tier powerhouses like Roger, despite possessing immense disposition, only exuded Haki, not the same kind of reckless arrogance Buggy displayed. The reason was that Buggy hadn't awakened his Conqueror's Haki. He couldn't digest the disposition gained from Born of the Sea, Apex Gold, to actually strengthen his Haki. Therefore, he couldn't fully control the immense disposition generated by the trait, leading him to act like an arrogant, reckless fool. Born of the Sea, Apex Gold. Only after awakening Conqueror's Haki could its full power truly be utilized. However, even with the added digestion step, it didn't impact the overall speed at which Rowan could become stronger. After all, Rowan was human, not a fish. He couldn't spend 24/7 in the ocean anyway. The digestion period perfectly aligned with his natural need for rest. Feeling his Haki continuously growing stronger, Rowan smiled slightly. This feeling was very good. Chapter 24, Somewhere in the East Blue, A ship flying the buggy pirates Jolly Roger sailed alongside another small vessel, lashed together. Luffy was clearly unhappy about sailing under Buggy's flag. He desperately wanted his own Jolly Roger. But the flag's design was painted directly onto the sail, and they needed the sail deployed to move. Luffy tried to protest, but a sharp glare from Nami instantly silenced him. Just like in the original story, Luffy had left one sack of treasure behind for Orange Town's reconstruction, earning him a fierce scolding from Nami. However, despite lecturing Luffy, Nami wasn't truly angry deep down. Seeing Orange Town's plight reminded her sharply of her own home, Kokoyasi village, suffering under Arlong's violent rule. Helping Orange Town rebuild was something Nami genuinely wanted to do. At the same time, the realization that Rowan and his crew were fundamentally different from other pirates deepened within her. Remembering Rowan's earlier words, waves of emotion stirred in Nami's heart. Should she rely on Rowan and the others? But that monster, Arlong. Could Rowan's crew really defeat him? She had almost saved up the 100 million Bailey needed to buy back Kokoyasi village from Arlong. Was it necessary to take such a risk now? But could Arlong's word truly be trusted? No. Stop thinking like that. Otherwise, what was the point of working so hard to earn that 100 million Bailey? Nami stared blankly at the sea chart, lost in thought, then shook her head fiercely. Right now, focus on planning properly for these guys. In their current state, they have no hope of surviving the Grand Line. Just as I thought. Trying to reach the Grand Line with boats like these is completely reckless. Nami stated seriously after composing herself, looking from the chart to the two small, makeshiftly tied vessels. Guess we really do need more crewmates. Luffy commented from the bow, munching on an apple. It's not just about personnel. This ship's lack of proper equipment absolutely won't keep us safe. Nami declared, hands on her hips. Exactly. We definitely need a musician. Luffy agreed wholeheartedly. A musician? Ha 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 ha. Zoro couldn't help but burst out laughing upon hearing that. Heading into the Grand Line, notoriously known as the Pirate Graveyard, and the most important thing was a musician? Luffy's way of thinking was truly unlike anyone else's. You idiot. Rowan, say something. You know some navigation too, right? Nami, now somewhat accustomed to Luffy's bizarre logic, could only clutch her head in exasperation before turning to Rowan. Oh. Ha. Rowan, who had accumulated sufficient disposition through Born of the Sea, Apex Gold, and was currently digesting it by absorbing the sea's energy from the wind to strengthen his haki, opened his eyes upon hearing Nami. Relax, Nami. You're our crew's navigator now. My navigation skills can't compare to yours at all. You decide our next course. Rowan said with a smile. Since Nami had only joined temporarily and wasn't a full-fledged Straw Hat yet, Rowan couldn't equip her traits. Nami's climate sense, pale gold, trait, though non-combat related, was something Rowan greatly desired. After all, even the original author himself had stated that Nami's incredible talent for sensing weather changes with her body, if combined with the Rumble fruit, could potentially elevate her combat power above Zoro's, making her the second strongest in the Straw Hat crew. Even without the Rumble fruit, just acquiring Zeus boosted Nami's combat abilities dramatically. One could only imagine how terrifying the combination of the Rumble fruit and the climate sense, pale gold, trait would be. Rowan, who aimed to acquire the Rumble fruit, naturally hoped to obtain this trait as well. But Rowan wasn't worried. Nami joining permanently was only a matter of time, acquiring that trait was inevitable. As for navigation? Since they had a navigator now, Rowan was happy to leave route planning entirely to Nami. What Rowan needed to do now was continue getting stronger. His Conqueror's Haki, pale gold, trait, continuously strengthened by Born of the Sea, Apex Gold, had now changed, displaying a progress bar. Conqueror's Haki, pale gold, initial mastery allows overwhelming weaker wills into unconsciousness, pale gold, further mastery enables basic Conqueror's Haki infusion into attacks, deep gold. Once this progress bar was filled, Rowan's Conqueror's Haki would automatically upgrade to the deep gold tier. He would then be able to preliminarily infuse Conqueror's Haki into his attacks, reaching the level Yamato displayed in the original story. Once evolved to deep gold, even relying solely on Conqueror's Haki, Rowan's strength would leap to the level of a top tier 4 Emperor's Commander. The power of Conqueror's Haki was simply too overwhelming. Even at the deep gold tier, before exhausting his Haki reserves, he could likely trade blows with an Emperor using infused Conquerors for a short time. This was unlike other 4 Emperor's Commanders or Admiral candidates, who often couldn't even withstand a single full-power infused Conqueror's strike from an Emperor. Someone capable of basic Conqueror's Haki infusion was definitely a strong contender for being the most powerful individual below the Emperor tier. Although the upgrade progress bar was moving slowly, The crucial point was that Rowan could upgrade his hockey thanks to Born of the Sea, Apex Gold. Other powerful individuals in the One Piece world lacked such means. They could only rely on the slow, crucible-like process of accumulating disposition through the blood and failures of their enemies to gradually strengthen their hockey. And this accumulation, which couldn't be achieved through simple training, was incredibly time-consuming. Before Luffy, even powerhouses like Whitebeard and Gul D. Roger generally didn't reach the peak of their strength, fully mastering Conqueror's hockey infusion, until they were well past 40 years old. The age at which powerhouses in the One Piece world reached their absolute peak often exceeded 50. Most of the current emperors and marine admirals, the pinnacle figures on the seas, were over 50, with the notable exception of red-haired Shanks, who was under 40. This was because accumulating disposition was incredibly slow, requiring years of experience and countless victories to forge exceptionally strong hockey. But Rowan, possessing the Born of the Sea, Apex Gold, trait, didn't need to rely on such gradual accumulation. He just needed to continuously train, swim and digest, to constantly strengthen his Conqueror's hockey until he fully mastered infusion. The more Rowan used this trait, the more satisfied he became with it. Alright. If we head a bit further south, there's an inhabited island. It would be great if we could get a decent ship there, Nami announced, studying the chart and planning their route seriously. Then let's go there. Time for meat. Luffy cheered, raising his hands. Don't forget the booze, Zoro reminded him. You guys. Nami instantly transformed into her sharp-toothed exasperated state again. South, huh? Rowan gazed towards the horizon. He had already looked at the chart. Their destination was Syrup Village. Besides being Usopp's hometown, it was also the birthplace of that ship, the one whose fate caused endless grief for countless One Piece fans back on Earth, the Going Merry. Having acquired superhuman physique, Deep Purple, what Rowan needed most now was a well-equipped pirate ship. And a cook. After all, only a properly equipped ship could store large quantities of nutrient-rich meat. Small boats like these could only carry fruits for sustenance during voyages. And eating only fruits wouldn't allow him to fully utilize the body-strengthening potential of his superhuman physique, Deep Purple. Rowan closed his eyes again, focusing on digesting the disposition gained from Born of the Sea, Apex Gold, continuing to strengthen his Conqueror's hockey. Chapter 25, Syrup Village, Outer Coast. The Straw Hat Pirates slowly made landfall. Finally ashore. Zoro stretched, loosening his stiff muscles. After so many days cramped on those small boats, his limbs felt numb. I actually felt fine, Rowan commented nearby with a knowing smile. Swimming freely in the ocean, enhancing his Conqueror's hockey, was a wonderful process. And having acquired the Born of the Sea, Apex Gold, trait, becoming the sea's favored child, even sailing on somewhat cramped small boats didn't feel uncomfortable at all. Who swims as well as you do? Zoro shot Rowan an exasperated look. Zoro had seen Rowan swimming effortlessly and had even tried challenging him to a race in the water, only to be utterly defeated. A significant portion of their journey here had involved Rowan simply swimming alongside the boats. Up this way is the village, Nami said, pointing towards the slope ahead, consulting the chart. Does that mean we can eat meat? Meat. Luffy excitedly rushed over to Nami's side. Can you think about something other than meat for 5 seconds? Nami dodged Luffy, who had started drooling at the mere thought of meat. There should be a bar too. We can finally have a proper drink, Zoro added with a grin. You guys are unbelievable. Nami's eye twitched. You've worked hard, Nami, Rowan said with a smile, looking at her. Rowan. Nami felt a surge of gratitude. Look at Luffy and Zoro, one only thought about meat, the other only about booze. Only Rowan appreciated her navigation skills. However, it seems getting to that village won't be quite so straightforward, Rowan commented calmly, glancing towards the bushes on the slope. Definitely someone there, Zoro murmured, his eyes narrowing as his hand instinctively went to Wado Akamaji, slightly drawing the blade. Where? Where? Luffy looked around wildly, searching for figures. Danger! Zoro suddenly yelled. A shower of marbles rained down at Luffy's feet, forcing him to dodge frantically. Rustle! Rustle! Then, numerous small pirate flags emblazoned with skull and crossbones symbols rose from the bushes. Eh? So cool! Luffy stared excitedly at the flags. Though small, the skull designs looked fierce. Luffy had always wanted his own Jolly Roger. Is this really the time to admire someone else's flag? Nami deadpanned, looking at Luffy. Ha ha ha. I am Usopp, captain of the great pirate crew that rules this village. People praise me highly, calling me Captain Usopp. A long-nosed young man stood beneath the tallest flag, pointing proudly at his own long nose and shouting. Usopp had just finished his daily routine of running through Syrup Village, falsely warning the villagers that pirates were coming. Right after completing this task, his subordinate, Tumangi, brought news of spotting actual pirate ships. Upon learning the pirate crew only consisted of 4 people, Usopp, determined to protect Syrup Village from invasion, gathered his crew, Kaiman, Ninjan, and Tumangi, and set up an ambush here. Hearing the words pirate crew, Luffy's earlier excitement vanished instantly. His mouth turned down as he looked up at Usopp. If you're thinking of attacking this village, I suggest you give up. Because my 80 million subordinates won't let you get away with it. Usopp continued boasting. Rustle. As Usopp finished his bluff, even more pirate flags popped up from the bushes. SUG. Luffy, who tended to believe whatever people told him, yelled out in awe. Seeing the guy below fall for it so easily, Usopp felt rather pleased with himself. That's a lie, isn't it? But the next moment, Nami's light chuckle shattered Usopp's smugness. Crap. They saw through it. Usopp yelled, clutching his head in panic. You didn't actually think anyone would believe the 80 million subordinates line, did you? Rowan asked Usopp, amused. How many people even live in the entire East Blue? Damn it. The enemy has someone like a strategist. Usopp yelled, looking at Rowan and clutching his head. 80 million might be an exaggeration, but I still have capable subordinates. Usopp quickly regained his composure, pointing towards the bushes behind him. The pirate flags waved up and down, manipulated by Kaiman, Ninjan, and Tumangi, creating the illusion of a larger force. It's just 3 kids. Nami pointed out with a mischievous smile. They saw through it. Run away. Kaiman, Ninjan, and Tumangi instantly panicked, scrambled out of the bushes, and bolted. Hey! Don't run away! Usopp yelled in dismay. Ha ha ha. You're pretty funny. Luffy burst out laughing, looking at Usopp. Don't underestimate me, you jerk. I'm a man with immense bravery. That's why people call me Brave Usopp. Hearing Luffy's laughter, Usopp grew flustered and angry. He pulled out a slingshot and aimed it at Luffy. Seeing Usopp draw a weapon, Luffy's smile vanished. He lowered the brim of his straw hat. You saw earlier. My slingshot skills are way better than most pistols. Usopp still hoped to scare off these pirates with words. Now that you've drawn your weapon, be prepared to bet your life on it. Luffy said quietly, tilting his head up slightly. Beneath the shadow of his hat, a sharp glint flashed in his eyes. Eh? Usopp was genuinely startled. I mean, this isn't just a toy for bluffing. Since you drew it, you have to stake your life. Luffy stated, revealing his classic serious business expression. Rowan subtly nodded at Zoro. Humphrey. Zoro understood immediately. He placed his hand on Wado Akamaji, exposing the gleaming edge of the blade as he looked intently at Usopp. You're standing before real pirates now. Zoro added, adopting a similarly intimidating expression. Are you prepared to bet your life? Rowan finished, his own expression turning serious, a hint of domineering presence emanating from him. Now possessing the aura of a true powerhouse, Rowan's mere presence could make even pirates of Buggy's caliber feel unnerved. An overwhelming sense of pressure instantly washed over Usopp. Clink. The pellet fell from Usopp's slingshot, landing at his feet. Wow. Real pirates really do have a different kind of presence and intensity when they talk. Scary. Usopp thought, cold sweat beading on his forehead. Ha. Ha ha ha. But to Usopp's confusion, the next moment, Rowan and the others looked at each other and burst out laughing. Just kidding. I was just repeating something I heard from Shanks, a pirate I respect. Luffy explained, adjusting his hat with a wide grin. Shanks? You know the great pirate Shanks? Usopp stared, utterly shocked. Yep. And your dad is Usopp, right? Luffy continued, still smiling. Eh? Usopp was so shocked he tumbled down the hill. Rowan watched with a strange smile. Usopp looks so much like Usopp. Looks like even Luffy remembers faces clearly when they're connected to his network. Classic One Piece world procedure. Rowan then focused his gaze on Usopp. Does Usopp have any traits I need? Chapter 26, Shishishi. Delicious. Luffy, invited over by Usopp, took a huge bite out of a piece of meat and exclaimed happily. Beside him, Rowan was also eating at an incredible speed. Having already equipped superhuman physique, Deep Purple, Rowan's appetite now rivaled Luffy's. Like Luffy, Rowan was thoroughly sick of eating apples. Moreover, the nutrients from all this meat were being rapidly absorbed through his superhuman physique, Deep Purple, strengthening Rowan's body. Pretty good, right? I can't believe you know my old man, Luffy. Usopp grinned happily. Hearing news about his father, Usopp, made him incredibly happy. I met him when I was little. You look exactly like him, so I recognized you right away. Luffy said between mouthfuls of meat. So my old man is on the crew of that great pirate Shanks, huh? Usopp's face filled with admiration. Your dad's marksmanship is incredible. Luffy recalled fondly. I heard so much about you from Usopp, my ears almost fell off. Usopp is an amazing pirate. Luffy added with a smile. Right? I'm incredibly proud of my dad for bravely heading out to sea like that, risking his life. Usopp declared proudly. Check traits. Rowan, having finished all the meat on the table, finally had a moment to check Usopp's traits. If he hadn't eaten quickly, Luffy would have devoured everything. Usopp traits: Slingshot Sniper, Pale Purple, Inventor, Pale Purple, Anthem of Courage, Special. Slingshot Sniper, Pale Purple, possesses exceptional sniping talent. When using a slingshot for sniping, can be even more effective than firearms. Inventor, Pale Purple, possesses outstanding inventive talent, capable of creating various gadgets and tools. Slingshot Sniper, Pale Purple, being a combat trait like superhuman physique, Deep Purple, currently reflected Usopp's overall combat capability based on his present sniping skill. It didn't indicate his ultimate potential ceiling. In the One Piece world, snipers relying solely on marksmanship rarely achieved high combat power levels. Firearms were largely ineffective against truly strong opponents. Usopp, still untrained at this point, only reached the Pale Purple combat tier by combining his natural talent with the special ammunition created through his inventor, Pale Purple, trait. Truly exceptional snipers reach their peak combat potential through hockey. Therefore, possessing a Pale Purple sniping trait even before learning hockey already proved Usopp's sniping talent was potentially on par with his father, Usopp's. Of course, this didn't diminish the importance of raw sniping skill. Controlling hockey was difficult enough, imbuing it into projectiles and hitting targets accurately became exponentially harder as hockey's strength increased. Only supreme sniping ability could allow one to accurately strike enemies with projectiles carrying incredibly powerful hockey. The same principle applied later when Usopp used special plants for his attacks. Only supreme sniping skill allowed him to accurately deliver those plants to the optimal locations for maximum effect. This held true even for snipers with observation hockey. While observation hockey could reveal a target's location, seeing didn't guarantee hitting. Accurately hitting the target still relied fundamentally on sniping skill. Inventor, Pale Purple, was a non-combat trait, similar to navigation. Its current tier reflected Usopp's present inventive capabilities. As Usopp grew stronger and more skilled in the future, both these traits would likely upgrade accordingly. Even so, compared to Luffy and Zoro, Usopp's current trait lineup seemed rather unremarkable. But that last special trait, that was something entirely different. Rowan's eyes narrowed slightly. Anthem of Courage, Special. Timidity is natural to living beings, but courage is humanity's anthem. Though naturally timid and weak-willed, at critical moments, can sing forth humanity's anthem of courage. Unleashing power far exceeding their own strength to turn the tide of battle. Reading this description, Rowan felt a genuine sense of admiration. Usopp was naturally cowardly, arguably the most cowardly of the Straw Hats weakling trio. Even Perona's negative hollows, which could drain anyone's will to live, had no effect on Usopp. That was because Usopp was already at the absolute rock bottom of negativity and cowardice. Even devil fruit powers couldn't make him worse. Compared to Zoro, Luffy, and others, Usopp's character wasn't exactly popular with everyone. But it wasn't Usopp's fault, it was his innate nature, practically coded into his genes, something he couldn't change. What made Usopp admirable was his ability to overcome this inherent flaw, to sing humanity's anthem of courage when it truly mattered. For someone naturally so timid and negative, displaying such bravery was even more commendable than it would be for an ordinary person less prone to fear. His lifelong dream was to become a brave warrior of the sea, and Usopp, through his actions, ultimately proved he possessed the necessary disposition. Rowan respected a man like that. Since you two know each other, that makes things easier. Say, I was wondering if we could find someone in your village who knows how to sail, and maybe get a bigger ship. Nami asked Usopp with a hopeful smile. As you can see, it's just a small village. You'll probably be disappointed. Usopp replied, his eyes darting away nervously. There's a huge mansion up on the hill. Zoro suddenly pointed out. Usopp's expression changed instantly. Nami sharply caught this shift. Eh? Is that a friend of yours, Usopp? Could you maybe ask them to help us out with some money? Nami asked, her eyes curving into smiling crescents. Not there. Definitely not there. Usopp reacted almost instinctively, shouting loudly. Luffy and the others looked at Usopp, puzzled. I just remembered I have something important to do. I know the owner here really well, so feel free to eat and drink as much as you like. I gotta go. See ya. Usopp blurted out, then bolted away. What's wrong with him? He seemed so panicked. Nami wondered aloud, watching Usopp's retreating figure. Crunch. Luffy continued eating his apple. Well, there's only one way to find out what's going on. Let's go take a look, right, Luffy? Rowan suggested, a slight smile playing on his lips. That mansion belonged to Usopp's friend, Kaya. And hiding within that mansion was another pirate, 100 Plans Kuro, with a bounty of 16 million Bailey. Given that bounty and his performance in the original story, Kuro should possess a purple tier combat trait. Perfect material for upgrading. Every little bit helps. They were about to enter the Grand Line soon. Rowan wouldn't pass up any opportunity to become stronger. Right. Shishishi. Luffy grinned. Chapter 27, Syrup Village, outside the gates of the most prominent mansion. Rowan and the others had been led here by Usopp's 3 subordinates, Kaiman, Ninjin, and Tamangi. The kids had found them just as Rowan's group was about to leave the restaurant, initially fearing their captain Usopp had been harmed by these pirates. After learning Luffy knew Usopp's father, the 3 kids readily brought them here. Rowan was happy to have guides. Whoa, it's huge. Luffy exclaimed, staring up at the mansion before them. It certainly is. Rowan agreed. Building such a large and luxurious mansion in this relatively poor village. No wonder Kuro targeted it. If the captain disappears around this time, he's definitely here. Tamangi stated confidently. What does he do here? Luffy asked curiously. Tells lies. Ninjin replied bluntly. That's not right, is it? Nami commented, feeling Usopp was setting a bad example for the kids. It's not wrong. It's great. Ninjin retorted defensively. What's this all about? Even Zoro was curious now. Ms. Kaya, who lives in this mansion, is very frail. Plus, she's been deeply saddened ever since her parents passed away a year ago. Even with all her money, could anything be sadder than that? So, the captain cheers her up with his amazing tall tales. The 3 kids explained proudly, glancing at each other. Oh, I see. That guy's pretty great, then. Luffy concluded thoughtfully. So, has Miss Kaya's health improved at all? Nami asked, her impression of Usopp changing significantly for the better. Much better. Tamangi declared proudly. Alright. Then let's go ask if she can give us a ship. Luffy cheered, raising his hand with a grin. Hey. Her getting better is thanks to Usopp, right? Zoro pointed out, arms crossed, looking at Luffy. What does Miss Kaya's improved health have to do with them? How can they just go ask her for a ship? I'll go ask. Shishishi. Luffy immediately grabbed onto the mansion's fence. Gamu Gamu no. Luffy's arm stretched dramatically. Hey. You idiot. Zoro and Nami lunged, grabbing onto Luffy. Rowan grabbed onto Zoro. Coming through. Luffy abruptly let go. The recoiling rubber elasticity flung everyone high into the air. Ah. And that's how he escaped from that giant goldfish? Ha ha ha. Having left Rowan's group earlier, Usopp had come here, standing on a tree branch outside the mansion window, regaling Kaya inside with his fabricated adventures. He had just reached the end of his story. What's that? A young woman with beautiful blonde hair and a delicate face, though clearly looking weak, suddenly pointed towards the sky. This was the mistress of the mansion, Kaya. Usopp followed Kaya's pointing finger and stared, his eyes widening in shock. People? Falling from the sky? Crash. With a tremendous impact, Rowan and the others landed. Smooth landing. Luffy announced, face first in the dirt. Like hell it was. Nami roared, transforming into her sharp-toothed angry state. If Rowan hadn't protected her, she thought she was going to die. Hey. Rowan. You bastard. Zoro groaned from the ground, his eye twitching as he painfully turned his head to glare at Rowan and Nami, who were sitting comfortably on his back. Sorry. Your physique is stronger, Zoro. Rowan apologized without a shred of sincerity. Rowan was sitting on Zoro's back, having used him as a cushion, while Nami was held securely in a princess carry in Rowan's arms. Knowing full well how unreliable Luffy could be, Rowan had grabbed onto Zoro at the first opportunity. Besides, Zoro has demonic physique, deep purple. A little impact like this will just help strengthen his body, right? Rowan. Thanks. Nami muttered after yelling at Luffy, looking up at Rowan holding her lips pressed together. It seems like Rowan always protects her. Back in Orange Town, Rowan had said he'd risk his life for her. That memory still sent ripples through Nami's heart. Rowan's promise to risk his life for his comrades. Nami's perspective might have automatically romanticized it a bit. If you two are gonna cuddle, do it somewhere else. I'm still underneath here. Zoro grumbled, still serving as a human cushion. Ah. Nami's face flushed slightly, and she quickly jumped out of Rowan's arms. Zoro, my man. Rowan said, patting Zoro's shoulder. Next time. Just you and me, we'll have a little spar. Rowan offered with a wide smile, which paradoxically sent a chill down Zoro's spine, making him shiver. Are you all alright? Kaya asked concernedly, looking at the newcomers. Fine, fine. They're all just big fans of mine. New members of the Usopp Pirates. Usopp explained quickly, sweating nervously. These guys are real pirates. Although Usopp knew they were good people, revealing their identities might cause misunderstandings among the villagers. I'm not. I actually came to ask for a favor. Luffy corrected, pushing his straw hat back up as he stood, looking at Kaya. A favor? From me? Kaya looked curious. Yeah. We need a big ship. Luffy stated bluntly. Hey. You lot. Just then, a sharp voice called out. Rowan and the others turned to see a man dressed impeccably as a butler slowly approaching them. Kuro? Rowan thought. Check traits. Chapter 28, Kuro traits, Cat Claws, Pale Purple, Stealth Foot, Pale Purple, Ultimate Jutsu, Shakushi, Pussyfoot Maneuver, Deep Purple. Cat Claws, Pale Purple, Powerful finger strength combined with the 10-blade cat claws weapon yields considerable destructive power. Stealth Foot, Pale Purple, an assassination technique utilizing high-speed movement with cat-like footsteps. Ultimate Jutsu, Shakushi, Pussyfoot Maneuver, Deep Purple, Kuro's strongest ultimate technique. An indiscriminate attack using Stealth Foot, Pale Purple. Utilizes extreme high-speed movement and attacks with the cat claws, Pale Purple, to kill large numbers of enemies. The speed of this technique rivals the instant transmission technique of the six powers. Its drawback is that the user loses awareness of who they are attacking while active. An ultimate jutsu trait? This was the first time Rowan had encountered one. After carefully reviewing the system's explanation, Rowan understood. When a combination of abilities allowed the user's combat power to undergo a qualitative leap, a new ultimate jutsu trait could manifest. For example, Kuro's Stealth Foot and Cat Claws were both pale purple tier. But when he unleashed his ultimate technique, Shakushi, his combat capability reached the deep purple level. As for why Luffy and Zoro's so-called ultimate moves didn't show up as specific traits yet, it was because Luffy hadn't developed Gear 2nd or 3rd, and Zoro hadn't grasped how to cut steel, can go, or even truly entered the realm of swordsman, as opposed to just a skilled fighter with swords. At this stage, Luffy and Zoro's ultimate moves were merely them exerting 100% of their current power. They didn't represent a qualitative leap in their combat tier. However, if Rowan were to plunder Kuro's traits, taking the ultimate jutsu, Shakushi, Deep Purple, would automatically render the Stealth Foot, Pale Purple, and Cat Claws, Pale Purple, traits unusable, or perhaps they wouldn't be plundered at all. Because the Deep Purple ultimate technique trait was born from the combination of those two Pale Purple traits. Meaning, from Kuro, Rowan would essentially gain only one Deep Purple combat trait. Still, that was a huge win. A Deep Purple trait was a major tier above Pale Purple. This outcome already exceeded Rowan's expectations. Who's this guy? Luffy asked, looking at Kuro, who was pushing up his glasses with his palm in a peculiar manner. Clahador, Miss Kaya's butler. Kuro replied calmly, his gaze then sharpening. Would you mind leaving? Or is there something you wish to say? Kuro asked, walking towards Rowan and the others. Yeah. We need a ship. Luffy announced cheerfully. Absolutely not. Kuro suddenly snapped. Usopp, I often hear about you. You're quite the topic in the village. Kuro said, looking towards the large tree where Usopp had instantly hidden upon Kuro's arrival. Really? Am I that famous? Realizing he'd been spotted, Usopp sheepishly climbed out from behind the tree. I hear you often go on adventures, yes. Quite remarkable for someone so young. Kuro commented sarcastically. You can call me Captain Usopp too, you know. Usopp replied, sticking his nose in the air. Captain? Hearing that word, Kuro pushed his glasses up with his palm again. I've also heard rumors about your father. Kuro's words made Usopp's face darken. That's enough, Clahador. Kaya intervened, knowing about Usopp's background and trying to stop Kuro. You are nothing but the son of a filthy pirate. I wouldn't be surprised by anything you do, but please stay away from my mistress. Kuro ignored Kaya completely, shouting harshly. Luffy's expression started to change. Why you called him filthy? Usopp's face turned extremely pale and angry. PFFT. Ha ha ha. But just as tensions reached a boiling point, a sudden scoffing laugh broke the silence. What are you laughing at? Kuro's gaze sharpened, fixing on Rowan. Luffy and the others looked at Rowan, surprised by his sudden laughter, but trusting him, they simply watched as Rowan took a step forward. Aren't you taking your role a bit too seriously? Captain of the Black Cat Pirates, 100 Plans Kuro. With a bounty of 16 million Bailey. Rowan stated mockingly, a smirk playing on his lips. Kuro's expression instantly turned grim. What? This guy's a pirate? 16 million Bailey bounty? Higher than Buggy's. Luffy stared at Kuro in shock. Kuro? I think I've heard that name. But wasn't he supposed to have been executed by the Marines long ago? Usopp stammered, sweat beading on his forehead. Even if you're Usopp's friend, that's going too far. Kaya protested loudly, looking upset at Rowan. Indeed. I have no idea what you're talking about. That pirate Kuro was executed by the Marines years ago. Kuro stated flatly, pushing up his glasses with his palm. I'll provide proof. Rowan replied, offering Kaya a gentle smile. He wasn't angered by the young lady's outburst. Having been frail and ill since childhood, Kaya likely often vented her frustration through small fits of temper when feeling particularly unwell due to the pain and helplessness. But Kaya herself was inherently kind. Once her health improved slightly, her gentle and kind nature would return. Kaya had simply been deceived by Kuro. Rowan then turned his gaze back to Kuro. Are you an idiot? You hide out and only bother changing your name? Not even your appearance? Rowan casually produced Kuro's wanted poster. He had obtained this poster back in Shell's Town. Axehan Morgan had climbed the ranks to become the captain of the Shell's Town branch largely due to the merit of supposedly capturing Kuro. In reality, Kuro, tired of being pursued by the Marines, had his subordinate Django hypnotize Morgan into thinking he had captured Kuro. Then, a decoy was executed by the Marines, allowing the real Kuro to hide here as a butler, planning to peacefully inherit Kaya's family fortune. However, the hypnotized Morgan always considered capturing Kuro his greatest achievement. Given Morgan's obsession with his own merits, even wanting a statue erected in his honor, finding Kuro's wanted poster in Shell's Town had been incredibly easy for Rowan with his system. They really look exactly alike. Nami commented, comparing the poster in Rowan's hand to Kuro. Clador. Kaya murmured, looking at the poster, still finding it hard to believe. People resembling each other aren't uncommon on the seas. Kuro maintained, his face impassive. Is that so? I hope you can remain this calm in a moment. Rowan replied, looking at Kuro. A domineering curve touched his lips, and the crimson-black light in his eyes flared intensely. Boom. A terrifying wave of pressure erupted from Rowan, sweeping over Kuro. NGH. Kuro's pupils constricted violently, cold sweat instantly drenching his forehead. The next second, his eyes rolled back, and he collapsed unconscious. Conqueror's Haki. Even a supposed major pirate with a 16 million Bailey bounty, that was only major by East Blue standards. Before Rowan's Conqueror's Haki, he was just fodder. Clador. Kaya cried out in alarm. Don't worry. He's just temporarily unconscious. Rowan stated calmly, then thought inwardly. Blunder. Chapter 29, Blunder. Rowan focused his gaze on Kuro. VMM. A purple light, visible only to Rowan, flew out from Kuro's body and was absorbed by Rowan. Plunder successful. Acquired ultimate jutsu, Shakushi, deep purple, Drate. The next moment, gurgle. Gurgle. The muscles of the unconscious Kuro began to twist strangely, then seemed to deflate like a punctured balloon, losing all their power. When Rowan plundered a strength-type Drate, the target lost all associated power completely. What happened to him? That's so weird. Nami commented, feeling a chill run down her spine as she witnessed the scene. Just took something from him. Rowan replied with a faint smile. Wake him up, Usopp. Rowan instructed, looking at Usopp. Okay. Usopp blinked, then ran over to the unconscious Kuro. Wake up. Wake up. Don't catch a cold lying on the ground. Usopp said, his words sounding concerned, but his actions, likely shaking or slapping Kuro, were anything but gentle. Badmouthing his father was the one thing Usopp couldn't tolerate. Under Usopp's rough handling, Kuro slowly regained consciousness. Clador. Are you okay? Kaya still found it hard to believe that the butler who had cared for her for 3 years was actually a pirate. Are you awake now? Kuro? No. Even if you admit your 100 plans Kuro now, you can't back it up anymore, can you? Rowan looked down at Kuro with a cold smile. That power. NGH. Kuro was still reeling from the shock of the Conqueror's Haki blast. He shook his head violently, then his pupils suddenly constricted. And my strength. My. Kuro stared at his hands in disbelief. He tried desperately to stand, but his legs buckled, and he collapsed back onto the ground. It's normal to lose control of your weakened body temporarily after losing your power. Relax. Rowan stated, adopting his intimidating villain expression. Why you? What did you do to me? Kuro completely lost his composure for the first time, roaring at Rowan. Kuro. Bounty, 16 million Bailey. Your most unique combat style is the so-called stealth foot. An assassination technique using high-speed movement like a cat. Rowan narrated calmly, demonstrating the stealth foot as he spoke. Although he had plundered the combined Shakushi, Deep Purple, trait, he could naturally still perform the individual stealth foot technique. My stealth foot. Cold sweat drenched Kuro's forehead. My power. Has been stolen? It's huge. That's so fast. Were you always this fast, Rowan? Luffy stared wide-eyed. What did you do? Give me back my power. Kuro screamed, no longer caring about maintaining his disguise. Without his strength, forget about peacefully inheriting the fortune and living quietly, tomorrow would be his execution day. According to his plan, the Black Cat pirates were scheduled to arrive tomorrow, massacre everyone, force Kaya to write a will leaving him everything, and then kill her too. As the former captain of the Black Cat pirates, Kuro knew the ruthless nature of his former crew all too well. Many of them would resent him, their former captain who had faked his death and disappeared for 3 years. His previous strength was the only thing giving him the confidence to execute this plan. But now, powerless. The Black Cat pirates would probably kill him first. You really are Kuro? Usopp exclaimed nervously, hearing Kuro's desperate admission. How could this be? Kaya covered her mouth, staring at Kuro in disbelief. But the evidence was right before her eyes. Kaya was kind, not stupid. She finally understood. Clador truly was the infamous pirate, 100 Plans Kuro. Don't worry, Usopp. I took all his power. Even you could easily finish him off now. Rowan scoffed, looking down at Kuro. To develop a skill comparable to the 6 powers instant transmission on his own in the East Blue. Kuro did possess talent. But getting tired of being chased by marines and bounty hunters, choosing to fake his death and hide. And then infiltrating here as a butler for 3 years, planning to inherit Kaya's fortune through manipulation and murder just to live comfortably. Pathetic. Whoa, Rowan. You can take away other people's powers too? Is that a devil fruit ability? Luffy asked, amazed. No. It's an innate ability I was born with. Nothing to do with devil fruits. Rowan replied, choosing not to hide his power. It wasn't just because hiding it from Luffy and the others, whom he'd be living and traveling with, would be difficult and might cause distrust, potentially slowing down the trait equipping process. More importantly, within the hockey-centric power system, deliberately concealing one's abilities, playing dumb to outsmart others can leave you stuck as the fool. Like Blackbeard hiding on Whitebeard's ship. If Blackbeard hadn't found the dark fruit, his disposition would have continued to shrink due to hiding his true nature, and his thought of maybe just living out my days on Whitebeard's ship isn't so bad might have become reality, turning him into a truly useless freeloader. Besides, sometimes, revealing your strength wasn't a weakness, it was a terrifying deterrent. Only by having your abilities sung across the seas as powerful and fearsome could you earn a greater title, forge a stronger disposition, and cultivate stronger hockey. Backed by Luffy's powerful connections, Rowan didn't need to fear attracting unbeatable enemies prematurely anyway. If he were to excessively conceal his ability to plunder others' powers, how could he claim to possess the disposition to stand above all? Of course, Rowan wouldn't go around advertising his ability to the whole world either. There was a difference between kingly disposition and foolishness. The abilities Rowan chose to display were merely the surface layer of his true power. By the time Rowan decided to reveal more of his combat capabilities strategically, using them as a deterrent to further enhance his reputation, he would already be among the world's peak powerhouses. At that point, the partially revealed information about Rowan's strength would serve as the ultimate deterrent to the world, further forging his own hockey. Just like the current 4 emperors, which truly strong individual on the seas didn't know about their powers. Yet how many dared to challenge them? Instead, their fearsome reputations only made their hockey stronger. In clashes between such peak powerhouses, hockey was ultimately the deciding factor. So what if others knew some information? Hockey. That was what transcended everything. Possessing the Born of the Sea, Apex Gold, trait, Rowan had absolute confidence. You're really terrifying, Rowan. Zoro commented. Directly stealing someone's power, such an unbelievable ability genuinely unnerved even him. Good thing Rowan is our comrade. Convert. Rowan issued the command internally at this moment. Having demonstrated the power and confirmed Kuro's identity, this uncontrollable attack style, Shakushi, was useless to Rowan. Better to use it to strengthen his existing traits. Conversion successful. Acquired strength type Deep Purple upgrade material quantity, 1. A notification appeared. It's over, Kuro. Rowan stated, looking down at Kuro with his villain expression. W8. I have something to say. Kuro stammered, utterly terrified as Rowan walked towards him. Right now, Kuro was like a cornered, desperate dog. This man before him had stripped him of everything. Chapter 30, Don't Kill Me. I have information. We can trade. Kuro, his earlier composure completely shattered, pleaded, his face contorted with terror. Only someone who had truly experienced having their power utterly plundered by Rowan could understand that level of despair. Years of effort, years of training and battle forging his strength, all stolen in an instant. All that remained was a broken shell, a body now struggling even to stand. And for a pirate, being stripped of power meant being stripped of everything. Monster. Kuro, unable to even stand properly due to the sudden loss of strength, sat paralyzed on the ground, staring up at Rowan in utter horror, not even daring to meet his eyes. He had been a notorious pirate in the East Blue, yet he had never encountered such a monster. Whether it was the moment earlier when the man's mere gaze sent an irresistible force washing over him, knocking him unconscious, or now, having everything stolen by some unknown means. Kuro felt like an ant before this man, someone who could be crushed at any moment. He didn't even have the right to look this man in the eye. Now, completely terrified, Kuro only wanted to survive. Information? Rowan's lips curved slightly. Why yes. I'm the former captain of the Black Cat Pirates. But I can still actually command them. Tomorrow, the Black Cat Pirates are coming to attack this village. Even if you're strong, preventing any damage to the village during that kind of chaos is impossible, right? Spare my life, and I can help you take out all those guys. Hey. Usopp. You're friends with them, right? You don't want the villagers to get hurt, do you? Tell them to let me go. Kuro babbled desperately, then immediately turned his pleading gaze towards Usopp. What? Usopp's face turned pale instantly. Kaya covered her mouth, unable to believe this was the true face of Clahador, the butler she had trusted for 3 years. So, why did you infiltrate this place as a butler? And why arrange for the Black Cat Pirates to attack? Rowan asked calmly, his expression unchanged. Knowing the plot, Rowan already knew the reasons, but having Kuro confess himself would completely shatter any remaining illusions Kaya might hold. Kuro's throat felt dry. He hesitated, unable to speak for a long moment. Not talking? Then. Die. Rowan stated coldly, his eyes narrowing. I'll talk. I infiltrated here for this family's fortune. I was sick and tired of the Marines chasing me because my bounty kept getting higher. So I faked my death to hide. Then I spent 3 years earning the villagers' trust. Tomorrow, after the Black Cat Pirates kill Miss Kaya and force her to write a will leaving everything to me, I can legally claim the fortune and live peacefully. Terrified beyond reason by Rowan, Kuro spilled everything immediately. As for why he didn't lie? Under such extreme fear, Kuro's mind had already crumbled, lying was beyond him. Clahador. Kaya whispered, covering her mouth, staring at Kuro in disbelief. The butler her family had taken in, treated like one of their own. Intended to murder them all. Let me go. I'll tell you where those Black Cat bastards are. I won't be a pirate anymore. Just spare my life. Kuro begged, completely disregarding Kaya's feelings, focused solely on survival. Wham! An elongated fist slammed heavily into Kuro's face, the force so great it distorted his features. Trading your crewmates' lives for your own. Scum like you don't even deserve to be called pirates. Comrades aren't meant to be used like that. Luffy roared, looking down furiously at the now silent Kuro on the ground. Zoro smirked faintly. Rowan glanced at Nami, who pressed her lips together, understanding his unspoken meaning. Rowan's earlier words about risking his life to help her echoed in her mind, along with the memory of him carrying her. Waves of complex emotion washed over Nami again. Hey, Luffy. You didn't even ask where those pirates are. Usopp yelled, clutching his head, then rushed over to Kuro, shaking him desperately, trying to wake him up. Hey! Wake up, you jerk! Where are those pirates? Usopp shook Kuro frantically, sweat dripping down his forehead. But Kuro, completely stripped of his power by Rowan, now possessed the constitution of an ordinary villager. After taking a full-force angry punch from Luffy, there was no way he could wake up now. Damn it! Realizing Kuro was truly unresponsive, Usopp slammed his fist onto the ground in frustration. Just go tell the villagers pirates are coming tomorrow. Have them evacuate. Zoro suggested, arms crossed. They won't believe me. I've always lied to them about pirates coming. Usopp cried out, anguish etched on his face. Usopp. I can tell them. Kaya offered weakly, coughing slightly. Her body was already frail, and the shock of Kuro's betrayal had taken a heavy toll, leaving her feeling unwell. No. Who knows if that Kuro guy hid anything else? Like maybe the pirates won't attack without his signal. If you tell everyone, Kaya, but the pirates don't show up tomorrow, Then people won't trust you either. By the time the pirates do attack for real, it'll be too late. Usopp's inherent pessimism and cowardice immediately conjured the worst-case scenario. The reason he constantly lied about pirates coming was rooted in his past. After his father Usopp left for the sea, Usopp's mother fell gravely ill. Seeing his mother suffering yet still longing for his father, Usopp had a sudden idea. He ran through the village shouting, "Pirates are coming!" hoping his mother would hear. Hearing Usopp's cries gave his mother hope for Usopp's return, and her condition improved slightly. So, Usopp continued shouting, "Pirates are coming!" every day. He kept up the habit even after his mother passed away, preserving it to this day. It held his deep longing for his deceased mother. Furthermore, Syrup Village was quite isolated on the sea. The villagers were often bored. After chasing and scolding him each day, Usopp sometimes saw genuine smiles of amusement on some villagers' faces. So, Usopp persisted. But now, years of crying wolf had finally led to bitter consequences. "You're not going to ask us for help?" Rowan asked, looking at Usopp, a slight curve to his lips. "This is my village. It's my responsibility to protect it. Besides, we don't even know if those pirates will actually come tomorrow. What if they don't show up? Are you guys supposed to just wait here forever? You have your own adventures to go on. How could I shamelessly ask you for help?" Usopp turned his head away, shouting loudly despite his obvious fear. "All right. Then Captain Usopp will defend the village outskirts from those pirates myself," Usopp declared, puffing out his chest. "But your legs are shaking," Nami pointed out, looking at Usopp. Damn it. This isn't a joke. These are real pirates. I can't be so cowardly." Usopp looked down at his trembling legs, sweat pouring down his face as he desperately hit them with his fists. "Fine. So what if I'm scared? Go ahead and laugh if you want." Unable to control his shaking legs, Usopp looked up and shouted defiantly. "No one's laughing at you. Who would laugh at a truly brave warrior of the sea?" Rowan stated calmly. "Rowan? Me? A brave warrior of the sea?" Hearing Rowan's words, Usopp felt his nose sting. Becoming a brave warrior of the sea was Usopp's dream. And Usopp had witnessed Rowan's power. To be acknowledged by such a man. Usopp felt his mouth go dry. "Why, you guys aren't just pitying me, are you?" Usopp asked, still plagued by self-doubt. "Who would risk their life fighting pirates out of pity?" "Idiot!" Luffy yelled, then grinned at Usopp. "Shush. Besides, what do you mean our adventure? Aren't you already our comrade?" Usopp's eyes widened in disbelief as he stared at Luffy, who was grinning and holding out his hand towards him. "Will you join us, Usopp?" Rowan asked, a smile playing on his lips. "Humphrey." Zoro simply smirked, saying nothing. Zoro could see Usopp's inherent cowardice, but he also saw the courage Usopp mustered to face pirates for the sake of his village. He respected a man like that. Luffy. Rowan. Everyone. Usopp's eyes instantly turned red. He lunged forward, tackling Luffy in a hug. "But I wanna be the captain. I'm the captain. Vice captain is okay too. Don't be stupid." Rowan watched Usopp rising with Luffy, a faint smile on his lips. Usopp has joined the Straw Hat Pirates. Equipable trait list updated, Chapter 31, Inside Kaya's Mansion. To thank Rowan and the others for defeating Kuro and saving everyone, Kaya warmly hosted them. "Aren't you two overdoing it? Didn't you just eat?" Zoro asked, his eye twitching as he watched Luffy and Rowan devouring food ravenously. Possessing only the demonic physique, Deep Purple, Zoro's digestive ability, while strong, couldn't compare to Rowan and Luffy, who both had superhuman physique, Deep Purple. Demonic physique, Deep Purple, lean more towards training enhancement, while superhuman physique, Deep Purple, focused on digestion and absorption. Rowan already possessed superhuman physique, Deep Purple, and the equipping process for Zoro's demonic physique, Deep Purple, was progressing smoothly, nearing completion. Rowan eagerly anticipated seeing what heights his physique could reach once these two perfectly complementary traits were fully integrated. Zoro managed to eat a decent amount. Nami, however, still full from Usopp's earlier hospitality, only nibbled on some desserts and fruits, resting her chin on her hand as she watched Rowan eat with gusto. Nami didn't even realize that a sweet smile had unconsciously bloomed on her face. "Delicious. Food this good, of course you gotta eat a lot," Luffy mumbled, his mouth completely full. Kaya's family fortune was substantial enough that even Kuro coveted it, willing to infiltrate her household for 3 years to obtain it. The meal provided was far more lavish than anything Rowan and the others had eaten before. "Enhance." Rowan swallowed the food in his mouth, then commanded inwardly. He used the strength-type Deep Purple upgrade material, 1, obtained from Kuro to enhance his superhuman physique, Deep Purple. Rowan now had the Born of the Sea, Apex Gold, trait, allowing his conqueror's haki to continuously grow stronger. Using a mere deep purple material to upgrade a gold tier trait would barely make a ripple anyway. With the Grand Line approaching, what Rowan needed most right now was a stronger physique. Enhancements complete. A notification appeared. Instantly, the nutrients from the food Rowan had just eaten were absorbed by his body at an astonishing rate, so fast that it wasn't enough. Feeling his stomach suddenly empty again, Rowan began a new round of eating, much to the astonishment of everyone watching. This was why Rowan had waited until after the large meal to enhance his superhuman physique, Deep Purple. Using converted upgrade materials to directly enhance the trait increased the upper limit of his physique and stamina, but the stamina tank itself still needed to be refilled. Simply put, if his superhuman physique, Deep Purple, was previously at 100/100ths capacity, after the upgrade, it became 100/150. He needed more food and nutrients to fill that newly created empty space in his stamina reserves. As for why the superhuman physique, Deep Purple, equipped from Luffy didn't require this refilling process? Because the equipping process also transferred Luffy's own base stamina value, meaning the tank was already full upon completion. This was a situation unique to Rowan with his system. In the wider world, even monsters like Charlotte Linland strengthened their physique gradually by consuming energy, adhering to the laws of conservation. No one else could instantly upgrade their physical limits using traits like Rowan could. It's huge. Rowan. Your appetite is even bigger than mine. Luffy stared, his eyes wide with amazement. He hadn't realized Rowan could eat so much before. There's plenty more, Mr. Rowan. Kaya quickly instructed the cooks to bring more food upon seeing the dwindling supply on the table. Kaya felt immense gratitude towards Rowan. If it weren't for him, she, Mary, and everyone else here would likely have been killed by Kuro. And Kaya looked at Rowan, a subtle shimmer in her eyes. Phew. Having replenished his nutrients, Rowan let out a satisfied sigh. He clenched his fist again, feeling the renewed surge of power in his body, a smile playing on his lips. After this enhancement, Rowan's raw physique was now arguably the strongest among the current Straw Hat crew. Looks like I need about 7 more Deep Purple tier materials to upgrade to Apex Purple. I see. Rowan checked the latest status of his superhuman physique, Deep Purple, a look of understanding crossing his face. Even within the same tier, traits could vary significantly in quality. Take Apex Gold combat traits, for example. The minimum threshold was Admiral level strength. This meant both an Admiral level like Zephyr in his prime, and a Peak Emperor like Kaido, would both display Apex Gold traits. But their actual combat power was on completely different levels. If someone like Zephyr represented a 1 within the Apex Gold tier, then Kaido was likely a 7, or perhaps even higher. The Deep Purple trait plundered from Kuro was likely just barely at the entry threshold for Deep Purple. However, the superhuman physique, Deep Purple, equipped from Luffy was inherently stronger than the base Deep Purple threshold. Therefore, after the initial enhancement, Rowan now only needed roughly 7 base threshold Deep Purple materials to upgrade it fully to Apex Purple. By the same token, if Rowan plundered a Deep Purple trait that was already significantly stronger than the base threshold, like Luffy's superhuman physique, Deep Purple, then upon conversion, it would automatically break down into multiple base threshold Deep Purple materials. The quantity would depend on the quality of the plundered trait. For example, plundering a Deep Purple trait very close to the Apex Purple level might yield 8 or even 9 base Deep Purple materials upon conversion. This made sense. Otherwise, plundering a near Apex Purple trait versus a barely Deep Purple trait yielding the same single material would be unfair. This aligns with the laws of conservation, too. Rowan smirked slightly. Luffy. How are we supposed to find those pirates? Usopp finally asked, seeing everyone had mostly finished eating. Dunno. Luffy replied bluntly. Eh? Usopp stared, flabbergasted. What do you mean you don't know? Are we just supposed to wait here until those pirates show up? Usopp clutched his head in panic. Shush. Rowan will figure it out. Right, Rowan? Luffy looked cheerfully at Rowan. In Luffy's mind, thinking stuff through was Rowan's job. Rowan always figured things out anyway. Compared to Luffy, Rowan seems more like the captain. Zoro commented dryly. That's true. Nami added with a chuckle. But Rowan acknowledges me as the captain. Shush. Luffy grinned, completely unfazed by his crewmates' teasing. As the captain, you shouldn't rely so much on Rowan, who's a crew member. You need to have some captainly resolve. Nami lectured. Eh? Isn't Rowan the vice captain? Usopp suddenly interjected. Usopp had assumed Rowan was the vice captain. But now, it seemed that wasn't the case. Chapter 32, Vice Captain. Hearing Usopp's words, Nami, Zoro, and Luffy all turned to look at Rowan. Nami felt that Rowan had indeed been acting like the vice captain all along. Zoro had no objections either. Rowan had shown him the path forward, how to achieve his ambition. Zoro deeply admired Rowan's disposition and judgment. He was perfectly fine with Rowan becoming the vice captain. However, the final decision rested with Luffy, the captain. Zoro and Nami looked towards Luffy. Luffy blinked thoughtfully. He remembered how Rowan, right after becoming his comrade, had fully endorsed his dream of becoming Pirate King. How Rowan had chosen the epithet Sky Sovereign, deliberately mirroring Dark King Rayleigh, the Pirate King's right hand and vice captain. And during their journey so far, it was largely thanks to Rowan that he had gained Zoro and Nami as comrades. Rowan himself was incredibly reliable. The position of vice captain truly suited him. But still, Luffy felt a bit conflicted. It's still too early to talk about a vice captain, Rowan said, looking at Luffy with a slight smile. Eh? Why? Being vice captain would make it easier to command the other members in battle, right? The crew would accept your command more readily. Nami asked curiously. Although Nami had only joined temporarily, and the official crew currently consisted of only Zoro, Rowan, Usopp, and Captain Luffy himself, Nami couldn't imagine a more perfect candidate for vice captain than Rowan. Even pirate hunter Zoro, famous throughout the East Blue, clearly respected Rowan and followed his lead. Rowan had basically been directing their combat strategy throughout their journey. It's not about becoming vice captain to gain the crew's acknowledgement. It's about gaining the acknowledgement of all comrades first, and then becoming the vice captain, Rowan stated, his lips curving slightly. Humphrey. A smile touched Zoro's lips. As expected of Rowan. So cool, Rowan. Usopp felt like Rowan was practically glowing at that moment. This is what a real pirate is like. Besides, Luffy hasn't finished gathering all his comrades yet. Before he does, before gaining the acknowledgement of everyone who will join, talking about a vice captain is simply too soon. Rowan added, looking at Luffy with a knowing smile. This was likely why, even in the original story, the Straw Hat Pirates didn't have an official vice captain even after defeating Kaido and Big Mom and becoming an Emperor crew. Luffy cherished and respected his comrades immensely, even those who hadn't joined yet. Knowing Luffy's personality, he wouldn't designate a vice captain until the entire crew was assembled. Shishishi. Rowan. I'm so glad you're my nakama. Luffy grinned broadly upon hearing Rowan's words, looking incredibly happy. This was exactly what Luffy had been conflicted about. Establishing a vice captain before gathering all the comrades and getting everyone's approval felt disrespectful to future crewmates. If he appointed a vice captain now, wouldn't future members feel more like subordinates than comrades? On his ship, there were no subordinates, only comrades. Rowan's words, it's not about becoming vice captain to gain the crew's acknowledgement, but gaining the acknowledgement of all comrades first, perfectly mirrored Luffy's own feelings. Once all the comrades were gathered, the one acknowledged by everyone would be the vice captain of his crew, received strong acknowledgement from Monkey D. Luffy. Bond increased. Trait equipping progress increased. The equipping progress for the Sun God, Apex Gold, trait advanced another step. Rowan smiled slightly. See, Rowan gets it. As the captain, you need to be more reliable too. Nami lectured Luffy, her gaze towards Rowan softening with something new, before turning back to Luffy with exasperation. I am reliable when it counts. Rowan said so. Luffy puffed out his chest proudly. Using Rowan's words to make yourself look good? How is that captain like? Zoro sighed, covering his forehead. Eh? Is that how it looks? Luffy's face fell instantly. Alright. Everyone gathered here because they acknowledge you too, Luffy. Rowan chuckled at Luffy's reaction, stepping in to support him. While Luffy might be unreliable most of the time, he was incredibly dependable when it truly mattered. Luffy's charisma was exceptional. Before setting sail, everyone in the future Straw Hat crew had their own dreams. But later, everyone added another dream to their list, making Luffy the king of the pirates. Rowan had joined the Straw Hats not just to equip traits from Luffy and the others, and to safely navigate his own growth period leveraging Luffy's connections. Luffy's character itself was a major reason. Rowan genuinely admired him. Rowan. Luffy felt deeply touched. Don't spoil Luffy too much, Rowan. Nami sighed helplessly. So, Rowan, how do we find those pirates? Usopp, concerned for the villagers' safety, looked anxiously at Rowan. The current captain of the Black Cat Pirates is Kuro's former first mate, Hypnotist Django, with a bounty of 9 million Bailey. If Kuro wants to command the Black Cat Pirates to attack here, he must go through Django. They need to coordinate the exact time for the attack, which means they'll have to meet. And Django. Well, he's a rather eccentric individual. He tends to attract attention without even trying. If we head into the village, we should be able to find Django relatively quickly. Rowan explained with a smile. Knowing the plot, Rowan could easily work backward from the known events to devise a simple solution for dealing with the Black Cat pirates. It's huge. As expected of a master strategist. Usopp looked at Rowan with reverence. Just like when they first met, Rowan easily saw through his bluff. Incredibly strong, possessing admirable character and resolve, and brilliant strategically. Rowan truly is a real pirate. Alright. Let's find that guy quickly and beat him up. Luffy declared, rolling up his sleeves, ready to charge out immediately. Do you even know what he looks like? Zoro asked, grabbing the back of Luffy's collar and pulling him back. Oops. Forgot about that. Luffy yelled, clutching his head. I'll handle finding Django. You stay here and talk to Mary about the ship. Rowan said, standing up. Django. 9 million Bailey bounty, hypnotism powers. Maybe he'll yield some useful gains too. Rest assured, Mr. Rowan. I will do my utmost to build you all a fine ship. Mary, who had been standing quietly nearby, declared earnestly. Mary was Kaya's loyal servant, but also acted as a mentor and close friend. He felt immense gratitude towards Rowan and the others for defeating Kuro and saving Miss Kaya's life. He was naturally determined to pour all his effort into building them an excellent pirate ship. Of course, the Going Merry had actually been a project Mary started designing as a child 22 years ago. The ship was mostly complete by now. But some details still needed modification based on Rowan and the crew's specific requirements. I look forward to it. Rowan replied with a smile. Chapter 33, Rowan, accompanied by Zoro and Usopp, quickly located the eccentrically behaving Django within Syrup Village. Before Rowan, Django was like a helpless chick, completely unable to resist. Using information obtained from Django, they subsequently located the Black Cat pirates' hideout and dealt with them all. The rest of the Black Cat pirates were mere lackeys, some didn't even possess white traits. At most, the Mioban brothers, Sham and Butchie, possessed blue traits, but these were utterly useless to Rowan. Django, however, did yield a trait of purple tier or higher for Rowan. Hypnotism, pale purple, capable of hypnotizing others, stimulating their physical potential for a large increase in strength. Drawback, loss of rational control. After converting this hypnotism trait, Rowan obtained 3 pale purple strength type upgrade materials. Apparently, abilities that directly boost combat power like this are also classified as strength type traits. Rowan was reasonably satisfied. Waste not, want not, after all. Rowan immediately used these 3 pale purple strength type upgrade materials to further enhance his superhuman physique, deep purple. Every little bit helps. Rowan's superhuman physique, deep purple, advanced another step towards the apex purple tier. Using the 3 pale purple materials to enhance his superhuman physique, deep purple, left Rowan feeling somewhat hungry again. However, since it was only an enhancement using pale purple materials, the resulting hunger wasn't overwhelming enough to require immediate eating. Subsequently, Rowan had Zoro and Usopp tie up the defeated pirates and bring them back to Syrup Village, leaving their fate to the villagers. This village wasn't wealthy, and turning these pirates in for bounty money could significantly improve the villagers' quality of life. This was also why Rowan had brought Zoro and Usopp along to deal with the Black Cat pirates. Grunt work like capturing lackeys was best left to them. And Rowan's motive for doing so? Usopp feels immense gratitude and admiration for your actions. Bond increased. Trait equipping progress increased. Rowan had already begun equipping Usopp's Anthem of Courage, special, trait. Initially, Rowan had been concerned that equipping this trait might also saddle him with Usopp's cowardice, which would be a terrible trade-off. However, feedback from the system confirmed that Usopp's timid and negative personality was inherent to his nature, and equipping the trait wouldn't transfer those negative side effects. Thus, Rowan proceeded to equip the trait. This Anthem of Courage, special, trait might prove unexpectedly useful at a critical moment. As for Slingshot Sniper, Pale Purple, and Inventor, Pale Purple, they held no value for Rowan, so he didn't bother equipping them. Having dealt with these miscellaneous tasks, Rowan proceeded to eat another full meal, much to the astonishment of Zoro, the others, and even Luffy, to completely replenish his stamina. Following Kaya's arrangements, Rowan and the others each selected a guest room, deciding to rest at the mansion for the night. The Going Merry still required some final checks and minor adjustments. Meanwhile, Usopp returned home to pack his belongings, preparing to set sail for the sea with Rowan and the crew. Inside Rowan's room. After a relaxing hot bath, Rowan leaned back against the headboard of his bed, cracking open the window slightly. He focused, feeling the sea's energy carried on the breeze drifting in from outside, using Born of the Sea, Apex Gold, to continue digesting his accumulated disposition and strengthening his conqueror's haki. While the Born of the Sea, Apex Gold, Drake made sailing remarkably comfortable for Rowan, relaxing on his soft bed while feeling the sea breeze was naturally even more enjoyable. Combined with the fact that he was continuously strengthening his conqueror's hockey, Rowan couldn't help but smile. Knock knock knock. Just then, a faint knocking sound came from the door. Rowan opened his eyes. Who could be knocking at this time? Though puzzled, Rowan still got up and walked towards the door. Click. Rowan opened the door and was slightly surprised by the person standing outside. Ms. Kaya? Rowan looked at Kaya, then noticed the serving cart behind her, and immediately understood. The corner of his mouth twitched slightly. Mr. Rowan, you can just call me Kaya. Upon seeing Rowan, Kaya blushed slightly and then let out a small cough. Her constitution was very delicate, the sea breeze drifting in from Rowan's slightly open window made her cough involuntarily. Then you can just call me Rowan too, Kaya. Rowan first closed the door slightly, preventing the sea breeze from blowing directly on Kaya, then spoke again. It's quite late, and you're not feeling well. Is there something you needed? Seeing the serving cart behind her, Rowan had already guessed Kaya's intention. I was worried you might still be hungry, Rowan, so. Kaya blushed again, gesturing towards the serving cart beside her. Rowan's appetite had stunned even Luffy. Naturally, Kaya was astonished as well. Crucially, Rowan seemed to eat frequently. Kaya worried he might already be hungry again, so she had prepared some more food. Her constitution being weak, Mary had helped her push the cart over. She then told Mary to rest before knocking on Rowan's door herself. You really shouldn't have gone to the trouble, Kaya. Rowan felt both amused and exasperated. Possessing superhuman physique, Deep Purple, Rowan could actually control his normal food intake. To fuel daily activities, he didn't need to eat excessively. He only needed to consume massive quantities of food when actively using superhuman physique, Deep Purple, to enhance his body, or after intense battles, similar to Luffy's pattern. The reason Rowan had eaten such a terrifying amount earlier today was precisely because he had used the upgrade materials to enhance his superhuman physique, Deep Purple. Do you want to come in and rest a bit? Seeing that Kaya didn't seem ready to leave just yet, Rowan slowly offered. Kaya's constitution was too delicate, just standing outside the door for a short while seemed to visibly weaken her. Rowan suddenly glanced down the corridor, noticing a figure lurking faintly in the shadows. It was Mary. Apparently, he was also worried about Kaya coming here alone. And since Kaya hadn't let Mary accompany her, it seemed visiting Rowan was purely Kaya's own decision. Then, excuse me for intruding. Kaya hesitated for a moment, then, blushing slightly and lowering her head, she accepted softly. Although unsure of Kaya's exact reason for visiting, if a young lady like her wasn't afraid, what did he have to fear? Rowan pulled the serving cart into the room, then quickly closed the window he had left open. Once the window was closed, Kaya slowly entered and took a seat on the chair inside the room. Chapter 34. After entering Rowan's room, Kaya was visibly nervous and fidgety. Rowan smiled gently at her discomfort and softly pushed the door partially closed, leaving it slightly ajar. This small gesture seemed to help Kaya relax considerably. So, Kaya, was there something you needed? Rowan asked kindly, sitting down opposite her. Rowan, aren't you going to eat? Kaya, though less tense, still used the food as a way to ease her awkwardness. Of course, I'll eat. Rowan replied, feeling both amused and touched. Although Rowan wasn't actually hungry right now, he couldn't disregard Kaya's thoughtful gesture. With his superhuman physique, Deep Purple, eating an extra meal wasn't a problem, it would just take a bit longer to digest. Seeing Rowan begin to eat the food she brought, Kaya's eyes curved into smiling crescents. Thanks for the food. Rowan said, letting out a breath after finishing everything. While his superhuman physique, Deep Purple, had incredible digestive power, digestion still took time. Counting the meal Usopp treated them to earlier, Rowan had eaten 3 large meals today. The last one, in particular, had already provided enough sustenance for his body to absorb overnight. Even Rowan's stomach capacity had its limits. After this late-night snack, he felt quite full. Rowan. You're leaving tomorrow, aren't you? Kaya, having composed herself while Rowan ate, asked softly. Yes. We need to continue on towards the Grand Line. Rowan replied with a smile. The Grand Line. What's it like there? Kaya asked, her eyes filled with longing. Frail since childhood, she struggled even with normal walking, let alone venturing out onto the sea. There? Well, the magnetism, weather patterns, ocean currents, and air currents are all chaotic. It's difficult even to determine your own location. There are islands perpetually covered in ice and snow, others constantly racked by thunderstorms. And high above the clouds, there are even sky islands. Rowan explained gently, seeing the yearning in Katya's eyes, vividly describing the wonders and perils of the Grand Line. In the East Blue, few knew more about the Grand Line than Rowan, who possessed knowledge of the future plot. Of course, Rowan hadn't personally experienced these things yet, he too eagerly anticipated the upcoming journey. Katya gasped in amazement from time to time as Rowan painted a picture with his words. Unlike Usopp's obvious tall tales, Katya instinctively felt that everything Rowan said was true, a girl's intuition. It's incredible. The sea is truly vast. Katya murmured, gazing out the window. Though night had fallen, she could faintly see the distant ocean waves shimmering under the moonlight, her face full of longing. Unfortunately, I can never go out onto the sea. Katya sighed, her expression filled with regret. Her frailness, combined with the wistful look on her face, made her appear exceptionally delicate and pitiable. That's not necessarily true, Rowan said softly, looking at Katya's forlorn expression. Eh? Katya looked up at Rowan, her eyes widening in surprise. But forget going out to sea, I have trouble even walking long distances. Katya murmured, looking down at her own delicate frame, biting her lip. The sea's secret treasures. Devil fruits. Have you heard of them, Katya? Rowan asked gently. Devil fruits? Aren't those just things from legends? Katya blinked curiously. Luffy ate a devil fruit. If you were to eat a zone-type devil fruit, your body could recover its health. Rowan explained with a smile. Katya's condition stemmed from innate physical weakness, making her prone to illness. This was different from Trafalgar Law's amber lead syndrome, which required the Apop fruit's specific surgical abilities to cure. A zone-type devil fruit, which enhances a user's physical body, would be sufficient to grant Katya good health. While even zone fruits were extremely rare in the East Blue, they were relatively common and less valuable on the Grand Line. And for Rowan, obtaining a zone fruit was simple. With the strongest trait system, he could convert devil fruit powers into traits and plunder them. Furthermore, these plundered devil fruit traits could be given to others. Just as Blackbeard could hunt down ability users to form his own army of devil fruit users, Rowan, with his superior system, could naturally do the same. However, since others lacked the trait system, if Rowan gave a plundered devil fruit trait to someone else, they would become a true devil fruit user, gaining the power but also suffering the side effects, like being rejected by the sea and becoming unable to swim. Pros and cons, that was the nature of devil fruits. Unlike Rowan, who could use the powers via his system without any of the drawbacks. Devil fruits. Those legendary treasures. Even if they truly exist, I'd never have the chance to eat one. Katya murmured, her eyes brightening for a moment before dimming again with disappointment. When we meet again, how about I give you a devil fruit as a gift? Rowan offered with a smile. Katya stared at Rowan, wide-eyed, completely unable to believe what she was hearing as she looked at his gentle smile. Rowan. How could I accept something so precious? Katya stammered, unsure of what to say. A devil fruit isn't a big deal to me. Besides, haven't you already paid me? A young lady's kindness is far more precious to me than any devil fruit. Rowan replied, gesturing towards the now empty serving cart with a smile. Katya bit her lip, gazing intently at Rowan. Frail since childhood and often confined to her room, Katya spent many boring days reading books for amusement.